Hey guys, it's Jenna Elfman from Fear the Walking Dead. I play Laura. No, I play Naomi. No, I play June. I play June on Fear the Walking Dead. And you're listening to the Fear the Walking Dead talk through on Talk Through Media.
Hey, I'm Lindsley Register, and I play Lara on The Walking Dead. You're listening to The Walking Dead talk through on Talk Through Media.
Hey, this is Ross Marquand, and you're listening to The Walking Dead talk through.
Awesome.
Hey, this is Mick Stahl, and you're listening to Fear the Walking Dead Talk Through.
Cool.
Hey survivors, welcome to episode 105 of Fear the Walking Dead Talk Through and The Walking Dead Dead City. Woo! I'm Kyle.
I'm LT.
And I'm Brian.
Woo!
What? Who let him in here?
Yes, well, I've had to stay silent because I've been working on the nights that you guys record.
Yeah.
And more importantly, B, I haven't been watching.
Well, you haven't missed much.
I just couldn't motivate myself to watch Fear, but I did watch the first episode finally today, so I can talk about that, but I'm 5 episodes behind now. So
I was going to say, I don't think you're not watching would affect the commentary much.
Well, that's why I'm going to stay, because A, I don't care if I'm spoiled or not, and B, after watching that episode, I'm like, huh? That was my take on it. So, yeah.
Wait a minute. So you were sitting there, you had a red flash, and suddenly you woke up and it was the end of the episode.
I actually watched the episode, but I was just kind of like, okay, this is interesting. Characters not acting in the way that you expect them to act.
Right.
Exactly. That was my big take on episode 1. I can't say about 2 through 6, but that's my take on episode 1. So before you ask me what's my take on episode 1, that's my take on episode 1 is characters not acting like themselves.
Well, you can hold on to that for the rest.
I'm sure.
Yep. All right, well, let's get on with this. So we'll be covering Fear the Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 6, titled All I See Is Red, and the premiere of The Walking Dead Dead City, Season 1, Episode 1, titled Old Acquaintances. But first, we did get some feedback from Aaron from the internet, just about the podcast from last week.
And to that, I'll say, hi, Aaron, I've missed you.
Yep, she's been here by our side, although I did talk to her email. She's not watching Dead City, so.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Since she didn't watch The Walking Dead proper, so.
Right, no, and it's like, I understand the not wanting to get into it with like not knowing the characters and like all that backstory, and so I was like,
yeah.
But she's going to be, anyways, I will continue on with what she said about the podcast last week. So Aaron from the internet said, I am behind on this, but happy Pride, Kyle. Thanks. She said,
well, it's a whole month, so technically you're not behind.
True. But that's nice. All right. She says, quote, this episode has no saving grace, end quote. I love LT's comedy so much. Big heart. Another quote, she's a great character who deserves better. And she said, you can say that about a lot of characters, Mike. Cue Alicia springing to mind. Don't stop the Shrek train, LT. It's Kyle's funny bit each week. He needs the humor to make hit until the end. He's so close, just a few episodes. Kyle is us. Hi. I just got tired of trying to like follow the names. I was like, okay, plus you know me, I'm always mispronouncing everything. So,
Yes, and I've missed that. I have to admit that I've missed your mispronunciations.
Yeah, but basically everything. It's gotten a little better, but yeah, for the most part. She goes on, she's like, here's my thing with the bird names. When someone dies, does someone else just get the code name? Like if June had died early in the season, would there be a Blue Jay or whatever her name is, or a Blue Jay 2.0? There's only so many birds to pull from, so how do you keep Wren 1 separate from Wren 2 if they took Mo's code name and gave it to someone else, for example? Assume people live long enough and you say Wren and they're face to face with Mo, do they just go, I found Wren? No, the old one. What's the naming protocol here for multiple uses when a bird passes?
Well, given the fact that I've seen a copy of Audubon Standard Birds of North America, and it's about like not quite the size of like a physician's desk reference, I have a feeling there's enough variations in there that they could not have multiples.
Yeah. I'm glad they didn't have to go that route, but it was getting hard to even follow half the time, like, because they never would use this code names all the time. They would always like go back and forth between their name and then the code name. It's annoying. All right, and she goes on, it would be awesome if Sunday they show up and Daniel's taken everything. I don't have faith in these writers to do something that cool now, but it would be fun and very old fear for him and Madison screw people over in the name of helping their own group. And here's another question. What do we think Strand is up to? We haven't seen him all year, so are we just going to pretend he's dead and never speak of him again? Again, maybe it's because it's been so long, but I thought he was still alive last we saw him. Are we going to do Padre with Strike for the first half, then Strand for the second, because he's the one who took the supplies magically if they aren't still there Sunday? What if Morgan goes to kill Strike and we see a shot off camera and Strand did it, and so now we have Madison and Strand one last time kind of facing off to be the fear again before season end or series end? Let the show end with the OG cast that is left, even if it's been forever, so build up wise it feels manufactured. Well, I think that got answered. So
I think we have answers to those questions.
Yep. And then she quotes on, or another quote from the podcast. She's like, "We see where the writers are pulling ideas from, not their own." The shade. LOL. Well done, Kyle. And the podcast is and has been for the last 5 years the best part of Fear. And then a big smiley emoji. Thank you, Aaron. We're happy that you've been a part of this, even though we're coming to the end.
Well, as we've said, we suffer so you don't have to.
Right. I love Aaron's feedback. It's just always great to like get the emails from her and the recap of the, her thoughts on the podcast. I put in here because she did email me that she wasn't able to see the episode of Fear that we're getting ready to talk about because of storms. And so it got, I guess, screwed up. And also because they did Dead City first and then it wasn't on the regular time. She did email later that she did get to see it, or is going, like they re-aired it, but it was like on a little too late, so she's gonna just enjoy us talking about the discussion. I told her if she has any feedback, we'll cover it next week, so to get that in. So either way, Aaron, you're here with us.
Yeah, and maybe by then I'll have watched the other 5 episodes and can
no, that'd be awesome. I would love to hear your thoughts, Brian, because it's just to be able to, like, especially now that we're already at this point and you're just now catching up. I'm like, you can binge watch them and then be like, what the I'm glad I didn't waste my time. All right. Well, that was all the feedback from last week's episode. So let's get into this week's Fear the Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 6, titled All I See Is Red. Written by Andrew Chambliss and Ian Goldberg, and it wasn't Nazrin Chowdhury and Justin Boyd. That apparently I think people are not keeping up with the Wikipedia because that's usually where I look. And so it's like names keep changing, and I'm surprised that, I mean, it seems like Andrew Chambliss and Ian Goldberg have been basically writing all of the episodes except I think last week's.
Yeah.
So it's
pretty
like
much.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's kind of like, okay, maybe what I saw on Wikipedia, it's like they've been, they were behind it this whole first half. So
they were trying to lure us into a sense of false security.
Yeah, which would make sense of why like we're seeing a lot of these like little callbacks and then, kind of playing with us, like, fan service. Just keep us watching. Directed by Michael E. Satrazemis, and the description on YouTube TV is Morgan fights his past as he and Madison race to stop PADRE's expansion. All right, let's get into our ratings. I just didn't really have anything clever to say, so I just said 5. All I'm seeing is red.
Well, I was not quite as generous. I gave it a 4 out of 10. I saw red, and then I didn't remember what happened.
Brian, do you have any rating for what you did see?
Well, I mean,
you didn't watch last.
I did not watch this episode, so I'm not going to rate it. But if you want a rating for the first episode, I'd give it a confusing 6, I guess.
Okay.
So
cool. No, I was just like trying to make sure. I was like, okay, wait, you didn't see it, or you did see parts of it?
I didn't see it. I do have a rating on the Dead City, though.
Okay. Cool deal. All right. Well, then let's just move into our listeners' ratings.
Well, we kick off the listener ratings with Glennis from Toronto, who gives it an 8 out of 10 Morgan's Beau de Meaux.
Ivan from Minnesota, give it a 4 out of 10. So long, Dre Padre.
And Renee from Atlanta gives it a 5 out of 10. The birds are dead. Finally. With 2 hugs.
And Mike from Asheville gave it a 5 out of 10. Morgan Jekyll and Morgan Hyde.
I mean, I guess I can give ratings too. So I won't. Well, we'll just move on to the awesome sauce, and I'll start to give one there. Give them one there.
Okay.
Recite them there. I can't give my own, but I can read them.
Read them.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Cool deal. Let's get into our awesome sauce.
All right. Why don't I start then? Since I opened my big mouth. Glennis from Toronto says, "Hi, Glennis. Morgan actually saying out loud Rick Grimes' name and Alexandria, and the callback to The Walking Dead Season 1 with now the tables are turned with Morgan will radio Rick every day at dawn."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was. It was awesome to hear that, but again, I still felt like it was like, okay, here, of course they're going to do this like fan service, they're like, oh, look, it's like callback, and I just didn't quite understand it of like why out of all this time. But anyway, so we'll just leave it at that.
And once again, I'm going to talk about that later.
Good.
Morgan, I gotta find Morgan. I'll continue. Mike from Asheville says, Padre is dead. They wrapped that storyline up real quick. Well, I've been spoiled. Ivan from Minnesota says, the Padre storyline is finally over, it seems. Morgan is done with the BS and wants to go look for Mr. Grimes. Dwight's had enough too and wants to go back. Also, that ending. Rumors are Troy is back. And by the look of the hammer and things he's collected, I would love to see him return.
Yeah, which is still like, huh?
See, I don't think it's Troy.
Yeah, it's...
Who's Troy?
Troy Otto, the one that Madison killed at the dam on season 3, like really creepy guy,
Yeah, I would say.
Not Troy. Okay,
not Troy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's Troy.
Yeah, I hope it's not, because it would make
There was one thing that is a giveaway of who it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go back and like watch it
Oh,
again.
I saw it, and
Well, then we can talk about that later because I definitely
yes, we can.
want to know.
I'll continue. Renee from Atlanta. Hi, Renee. Missed you. Madison being there for Morgan and not giving up on him was reminiscent of how Rick was there for Morgan when he lost it. After he lost his wife and son. That had me all in my feelings. Crying emoji, crying emoji. Mo telling Morgan that she doesn't want to live without him, and he kept calling her baby, which is what I called my kids. I thought that was so sweet. Morgan telling Mo he was going to find the man that helped him before. I truly hope he helps Rick back, because to me, that would be like them coming back full circle to the beginning of The Walking Dead. After all, Morgan and Rick are the original gangsters. That would be a great ending to the flagship show, even though we already had an ending. I like that ending better. Judith and Mo could meet, and they would be great ass kickers together. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen though.
And since Ivan put it that way, it's because we were always going Padre, Padre.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I forgot. I haven't said that lately. So
Yeah.
there we go.
All right. Well, that was everybody's feedback or awesome sauce. So let's get into ours. Again, listeners always do a good job of covering, especially in this show. There's there's not much to really pull out of it that hasn't been already said. So, I was just going to put in, it's like, while I did appreciate them showing us or taking us back to some clear Morgan, I did kind of find it a little boring after a while, but I liked what they were trying to do. It's like, we know how that time was when Rick found Morgan back in in the episode Clear. And then getting another kind of rehash of that a little bit later on, I don't remember which season that was. There's the one that he met, what's his face that taught him the bow staff skills. Why did I just forget
The cheese guy.
Cheese guy, yeah. So it's like I appreciated that they were trying to do this, but again, it kind of was like it got a little weird and hard to follow because there's just the way they were doing it. But still kind of awesome. I'll just leave it at that. I thought it was kind of funny that was when Strike woke up after being bitten or whatever, and June was basically had her under the walker head chomping at her. I don't know, because I know that Dwight was basically saying, because June was like, what do I do with her? And he was like, oh, just I guess make it painless. And I was like, no. I wanted her to basically just start blasting her with the radiation gun and just torturing her after everything this stupid child did to them. So
And you're saying you wanted to see June crisp her up like a microwave burrito.
Yes, very much so. She was already going to die, so you might as well just
hey, it's okay.
Well, yeah, give her a taste of her own medicine when trying to do that to everybody else. And then Daniel, because I think Daniel, he is such a great character, and of course they've screwed him all over the place in this show, but just seeing him on screen, I love that, and knowing that we're probably going to get more and more other characters that we haven't seen this first half. Yep. That I hope they give him some screen time, and especially with Madison and Strand, and we just get the old Daniel back, because he is such a great actor, and that character has so much potential, and they've just never been able to really do it right.
Well, we've always gotten those little snippets. He'll have 10 or 15 or 20 minutes and just be amazing. And then it's like we won't see him for 3 episodes.
Right. And that's just, I hope they fix that. And then I put on there Troy Otto, but of course we're going to talk about that later because I just...
Yes, we are.
Thought it was cool that they're doing something, but then also like I'm not quite understanding it. So I'll leave it at that.
Yep.
Cool. All right, LT.
Well, for my awesome sauce, I have to start off by saying, aloha, Morgan. That, you've been fun and contentious for the entire time you've been on Fear, and it was a good thing that they gave you a decent send-off, even though I'm going to have to complain about it in a little bit, to see you and Mo get into your little rubber boat and go wherever it is you're going. For all the moments that his character was like, what? And all the times that he waffled and changed his mind. And I still think that it was a decent send off to see him in his moment of clarity with his daughter, riding off into the sunset at the mid-season break. So, I thought it was also nice that this episode at least explained, in a way, the psychotic breaks that Morgan has had through the years, that we kind of wondered what was going on. And at least now they gave us this graphic representation of the snap, when he's like seeing things and he's freaking out and everything turns red. And then it's like he comes to and there's like an ocean of dead walkers around him. That at least that sort of graphically gave us a notion of what was going on. I mean, I thought it was, I threw it in the awesome sauce that finally little Mo finally got her head together and decided to go back with her dad off to wherever her dad was going to go, since she obviously by proxy or, by just proximity or sublimation or whatever, sort of little Mo started acting like Big Mo. And we saw a lot of waffling and indecision on her part. So at least she got to go with her dad and ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Now, the part that I'm going to bring up first is that I believe that was a Strand teaser, sir. I do not believe that was Troy Otto. That was Strand. And the reason that I say so is that he had Alicia's arm.
Right.
The thing that he put into the bag was Alicia's bionic arm with the pokey things on it. And while it's not outside the realm of possibilities, I don't see how in the John Hill or how Troy Otto would have ended up with Alicia's arm.
Right.
Strand is the obvious choice there. And considering that, Coleman Domingo has a new series coming to AMC talking about his life, his experiences, and it's going to talk about a lot of the things he did while he was on Fear. I think that this is probably a prime opportunity for us to reintroduce Strand.
That makes sense. And it's
because if you think about it, even though in light of everything that happened, he still had a certain amount of supplies, he still had a certain amount of shelter, and he still had a place to be. That knowing what we know about Victor Strand, I figured that he could have cleared himself out a spot or even had a secondary fallback hole other than the tower where he could have sat back, donned his sporty uniform, consumed the more bourbon and listened to the radio. So I would say that that's a distinct possibility. And if I'm wrong this fall, I will gladly admit it. However, my money is on Strand.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. I sometimes though, don't think the showrunners are that clever, and then that they're trying to
they think they're clever.
Well, right.
They do. But the problem is, I don't see how you could have pulled off that much of a tale.
Right, without it.
Yeah, because he's the only one. I mean, we know he's coming back. They've already let that cat out of the bag.
Yeah, right.
So I'm just going, well, who else could it be?
Well, and that's why I'm like, it's like it's all over the socials and like, you know, other reviewer sites and stuff like that, that it was kind of like, what? And again, that question is like, I don't see how that even works. But what you're saying is like, yeah, that, I mean, I saw Alicia's arm too, and I was kind of like, I like, okay. But
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It would have to, I mean, as someone who hasn't been watching, it would have to be someone who hasn't been a part of the show, but was a part of the show when she lost her arm. And Troy, I mean, it doesn't make any sense for it to be Troy. I mean, maybe Troy's back in some other capacity. You know, maybe it's a flashback or, you know, maybe somehow, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Is it even possible that he could still be alive? I don't know. But, you know, it would have to be someone that was on the show last season that would know to recover the arm. And if Strand hasn't been a part of the show, logically, you know, putting my Spock ears on,
all I was going to say is there were only two people that were not on Morgan's big rubber boat flotilla. It was Alicia and it was Strand.
Yeah.
And Alicia is dead.
Right. Yeah. That we
know. You know, she has joined the choir invisible. She has shuffled off to Buffalo. So the only person left is Strand. And
wouldn't that put her, if she was shuffling off to Buffalo, wouldn't that put her on the other show?
Quite possibly.
World Beyond, the show that we don't speak about anymore.
Well, Kyle would have to cue the sound effects, but it's the kids show.
Yes.
Yay. But considering that I see the symmetry of it is we got rid of Morgan. And so what would be the only available fan service that they could give the people who were there from the beginning than Strand?
Yeah. Madison and Strand.
That makes total sense. You know,
now, and watch them make me look like an idiot by not doing it, but I still think that that's kind of where we're going.
Ophelia. No,
you're breaking my heart.
Yeah.
And the last thing I have for Awesome Sauce is, of course, Morgan says the name.
Yep. And that shall be,
because it's funny that after all this time, after all his travels through Rhode Island, Texas, and Rhode Island lower Gulf states, that now he's going to go back and find Rick.
Yeah.
So
that seemed to be the common thing after all this was also
Dwight
and Sherry.
Which is kind of funny because, you know, Rick wouldn't be in Georgia. Well, I don't know where.
Well, the last time,
where do they think they are right now? I know where the
last time he saw him, he was
in Alexandria or the trash heap or somewhere, but Alexandria. Well, no, but since the time jump, I mean they regardless, like they all still like it's still like all know like Alexandria still is there. They just don't know what's the status is. And so it's like that's what they're going back off of. But it is kind of like, oh, okay, here we go. Morgan now, after all this time, is like, oh, okay, now I'm going to go find Rick or go back to Alexandria. And Dwight and Sherry, it's like, they, like, I don't know. We talked about this like in earlier episodes where it's just like what, June, like what's holding you here? Like, why don't you just leave? Like this swamp isn't like got a bubble around it, you know? And it just, now they're all of a sudden, of course, because it's the end, that they're like, okay, I want to go back to Alexandria, go back to my home after all this time. Fighting with the bird people, I guess, was just traumatizing enough.
It was just too much.
Yeah. All right. Well, if that was all, then we'll go into our weak sauce.
You're worthless and weak.
All right. Well, I will take it over again since there's not much in the weak sauce capacity, actually. Ivan from Minnesota says, much like my title, this story didn't make much sense. Mo was incredibly annoying. Morgan would almost teleport when he would see red. I get what we were going for, I get what they were going for, but it didn't work for me. Mo stabs Morgan? WTF? With looking up emoji.
That's an eye roll.
I think it's eye roll.
Oh, it's an eye roll? Okay.
That's an eye roll.
You mispronounce, Kyle. I mispronounce emojis. So that's what I'm known for. The ending of Padre was lame and dumb. Honestly, most of this episode was pretty bad, but the ending at least gave me the slightest bit of hope. All right. Thank you, Ivan. Renee from Atlanta says, the daddy just happened to come out the water right then and there. Shrugging emoji. You talking about plot armor.
I thought that was silly. It was just like, out of all this time, Daddy was just roaming around the swamps the whole time. Or I guess he was in the.
Well, whenever the gates opened, he wandered off.
That's right, because he was in there because they had that all locked up and then they opened it up. But it's just like, out of all the places that he ends up there with Morgan and Mo, like in their little house, and it was kind of like, really?
Well, to paraphrase Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca, of all the swamps in all the world, he had to walk out of mine. What are the odds? It was just like the walkers a couple of seasons ago with the radiation detectors.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, obviously that's what the plot required and the story required, because otherwise, like, we wouldn't get the wonderful experience of seeing Trike get bit and turn into, like, cry. Anyways, that just annoyed me, that whole scene. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your weak sauces. We'll go into ours. I didn't bring that up because I don't know if I saw it earlier in somebody else's comment, but yeah, it was like just the way Strike just sees Daddy and then turns into like this, like, basically turns into a kid and it has feelings, and it was just like, oh, I can't do this, Daddy. And I don't know, that just it was what they needed to do just for what their story that they were trying to tell.
Yep.
It was just really stupid. The next thing, I thought that whole standoff between like Dove and Ben and like all the other like stormtrooper kids or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they had Daniel and the whole group all surrounded and like, basically like, this is your end or whatever. And so they're just like yelling, like Ben and Dove are like yelling, but it's like, shoot them, just kill them. That's what they want. But like that whole time I'm like, well, why aren't you doing it then? Like, I mean,
exactly.
It was just like, you just kept going back and forth, say, you shoot them now, do what I command. But then every time it was like, you could have just done that. And I don't know. It just it turned comical, that whole scene. I was just like, okay, whatever. Like I don't get it. Like, are you all like too chicken to do it? And so that's the whole point of this thing. And it was like,
well, I think what they were going for is that no matter how much they've been trained, the kids still think there's a potential that some of these adults may be their parents. And so they're kind of having that moment of, well, what if they are? Well, what if I shoot my own parents after all this? But yeah, it was the whole shoot them.
And it went
like,
on, and I'm like,
it's like, okay, Ben, why don't you put on your big boy britches and you do it?
Right. Well, and then that just leads into the whole like Ben and Shrike were like the worst villains ever. Yes. Like even going back and thinking about all the previous episodes and just like whatever, it's just like it was like, what was the point? This thing, like they are not scary. They were just almost like stupid. And it was like, and then of course our characters somehow lost all their, gusto and couldn't do anything when they had every opportunity to do it. And this would have been over. Oh, but I guess we needed the story of the children coming back and then Madison being able to take them all under her wing.
Yeah.
And the next week saw us again. The walkies. When I was doing my rewatch, or actually when I watched it again yesterday, it just how much they use the walkies for like almost like all the dialogue, for like all the interaction. And it was just like, I don't know. It's weak because it was like they didn't have to set up any kind of scenes or whatever between the characters. It was just all, oh yeah, here I'm, talking to so and so, and then it's
much cheaper that way.
I guess that's part of it too. But then again, like me and you said before, LT, it's like, and then they talk about everything on like the same channel, so everybody hears everything. And it was just like, and Shrike like chimes in, it's like, no, I'm going to take Mo with me, blah, blah, blah. And Morgan's like, no, you're not. Oh, hey June, where are you at? And it was like, gosh, you guys.
It's like I said last week, it's the knob next to the volume control. It's called the channel changer.
Oh, it was just I hope that ends for the next half, because it was weak.
There's only one channel. It's the AMC channel.
All right. Well, that's really all that I had that I wanted to bring up. What did you have, LT?
Well, while I have sort of changed gears, a lot of mine are going to be in the whats this time because they superseded any level of week. But I do have a couple. And one of them is obviously stress makes Madison not need her oxygen bottle. Because all those times where Morgan was like, Madison, where are you? Come help me, Madison. And she's like I could almost hear the Blues Brothers Chase music when she's like, dun, 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 dun. It's like, I'm coming. And she's paddling the boat. And I'm going, wait a minute. You were the person about a few minutes ago where like you'd walk a little bit and then start doing the emphysema wheeze and have to hit your O2 bottle.
Yeah. Where did she get her COPD in the first place?
I think it's because of the fire.
Because of the fire in the stadium.
Oh, the fire in the stadium. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
You remember all this time that we were positing that she was living on old hot dogs and nacho cheese in the concession stand at the stadium all this time? Well, obviously she, was in there when the fire happened, because the hook for the first 4 or 5 episodes was that she had to have this supplemental O2 every once in a while because she had lung damage. But apparently after Morgan put the big wackadoo on the O2 bottle, since when he was like buried in the quicksand, he pulls his axe out and it's got the bottle stuck on the end of it. There was a point, and obviously she had her little dangly mask back. Mm-hmm. So apparently after Mo did her scuba Steve escape from the sinking houseboat, she stole what was left of that O2 bottle back from Mo and put it back in her backpack.
Yeah. Yep.
But it just seems like she was doing awfully well to not have her bottle.
Yeah. No, it's convenient.
even though I'd mentioned it in the awesome sauce, I'm going to mention it now in the weak sauce, is that the Strand teaser. So all this time, all this stuff's been happening. Are we to assume that, like Madison was hanging out in the concession stand of the burned out stadium, that all this time Strand has been kicked back in the charred remains of his office, staring at his portrait, drinking what was left of Howard's bourbon, eating whatever plants were still growing on the roof in the greenhouse, wearing his funny little hat and just kind of hanging out, watching the world go by.
No,
what's he been doing all this time?
No, I haven't really thought about it, but the tower was on fire too, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, so maybe Madison and Strand can share a tank of oxygen together.
Well, that's possible, but we don't know because Strand got out.
Madison, I have oxygen for you.
It's
just my style and color.
I mean, he could have been just listening to them all on their walkies because
that was the whole hook. That again, if he's heard all this walkie chatter up until now, what was the thing that spurred him into action? The fact that he heard Madison's voice on the radio? But wait, gentle listener, how many times has Madison been talking on the radio?
Right. And then also there was this 7-year time jump. So it's like,
that's a long time to be hanging out on the beach, drinking Mai Tais. Of course, then again, we know that he was close to, no, they collapsed that one tunnel into the bunker. So he'd have to go back around. Well, it's not like he doesn't have time to get there.
Right.
So he could have gone back to the wreckage of the hotel at his leisure, cleared out whatever walkers were still inside, and then he would have all of the MREs and canned water that the FEMA people left in the bunker.
Right.
So
now, when I've got a question about now that you bring this up is, have you guys thought or figured out exactly when this is? Because, like, if you recall, listeners from way back know that Ruthie and I had a segment, especially in the first season, of when is it? And, back then we had figured out that season 1, the timeline of it, we figured was approximately October 2010, which is actually was in sync with the start of The Walking Dead proper, right? So it actually made sense that it was around October or November, because if you recall, The Walking Dead premiered October 31st, 2010. Okay. So anyway, have you guys figured out when this is now? You haven't thought about that?
No.
Okay.
Well, no.
I'll try to come up with that. I'll try to come up with that for next week. That'll be my little pet project.
Okay. Yeah. Because all we know is that with the 7-year time jump, it puts it closer to the main, or through the main show, The Walking Dead. But exactly where it fits in there, there's no real information that the show's given us to.
And we also have to factor in, we know roughly when the new show is, the Dead City is, because that's a little bit ahead of the ending of The Walking Dead.
Yeah, right.
So,
who knows? Because it's definitely, they haven't really given, because I mean, that's the thing. We don't even know how much time has passed between all these episodes of them running around and June shooting people, and then like the, train car, walker heads.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we have zero, and Morgan's teleportation act. We have no clue how much time has passed.
That sounds miraculously like,
yep.
Morgan falling asleep on the back of a semi and waking up in it's Mississippi. Yeah.
Yeah, wait till you see that episode.
That's what I was saying.
I will.
There's if the main show played fast and loose with time, then I think that they're faster and looser.
That stands to reason.
Well, that's all the week I have.
All right. Well, cool. Then that takes us into our what sauce.
What?
All right. What sauce? Ivan from Minnesota says, oh, hell no. Shrike. Oh, that's interesting. We have a Shrike in this show, huh? That's, that was the name of the ship in Picard. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
And that's the one that Kyle keeps calling Shrek.
Shrek, yeah.
Shrek, yeah. Shrike saw her dad and just let him bite her? Are you serious? What a stupid ending. Imagine if Negan's all-out war just ended with him being like, screw it, and just letting a walker bite him. Granted, this show is not even close to that, but still. Shrike and her brother were awful this whole half season. Oh, also Dwight and Sherry breaking up again. Really, writers? I'm over it, I guess. Something to look forward to. Mike from Asheville says, the way this episode played out, Morgan seeing red, that was annoying to watch, and then he would come to, and we wouldn't know what happened. This plot device was super convenient to move the story along. Last we saw him, he was trapped in a train. Episode started, he's out, and all the walkers are dead. All the walkers at the shipyard are just gone now. Shrike and brother got the ship loaded up with the containers. How much time passed from Shrike leaving Morgan at the train to him being woken by Madison?
Right.
I don't know.
We don't know.
Nope.
I especially don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was it for our listeners. What sauces? Everybody kind of takes over. Like, you all pretty much hit some of the same stuff, and really, I just kind of was like, I don't need to be trying to dig more deeper into this show. So, LT, you want to take it away?
Well, in other days, I may have just tweaked these, but I'm sorry, they're whats, because it just got me. My goat was gotten. So once again, even though I admit I have been the most strident of defenders of the most star-crossed couple in the apocalypse, this time I'm sorry, Chambliss and Goldberg, you've gone a bridge too far, gentlemen. A bridge too far, I say. Because once again, Dwight and Sherry break up. It's like, for the love of God, they're together, they break up. They're together, they break up. Now, I understand they have just survived a traumatic event. But I kept thinking, come on. This is the opportunity after your kid dies that you two can cling to each other and, bond to each other and share that common suffering. But no. Dwight gets the big idea that he wants to go back to Alexandria. And I'm like, for the love of God, Dwight, you came west to find Sherry. You found her. And you kept saying you were going to stay, and you've stayed with her when she made all the really bad decisions. And now you want to go.
Yep.
So I'm like, thanks, writers. Thanks ever so much. It's like, can't you just leave them alone?
Like, and they could have, like, they didn't have to go back to Alexandria. They could have, well,
see, and I understand why they did it. The nefarious thing that they are doing is they're going to winnow away all of the characters that migrated over.
Yeah.
So that the only people that are going to be left in the back half of this season are going to be people who were OGs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they had to get rid of Morgan, and they had to get rid of Dwight, and they had to get rid of Sherry.
Yep. That makes sense.
I just think it's a craptastic way to do it. Because why couldn't you have given them a little rubber boat and say, we're going to go off somewhere else and just watch them sail off into the horizon? You know, you've already mentioned it. And so I'm going to have to go all over this is that once she sees her zombified dad, Ren folds like a fitted sheet on laundry day. After all the tough talk, after all the, you know, Padre must go on, we must be strong, she goes, yeah, daddy. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, for the love of God.
It was horrible.
It was horrible because I'm saying, you've done all this stuff. You're like, what have you been preaching to these kids the entire time? Your parents abandoned you. And it's like, I understand. You were a kid. Your dad died a horrific death in the big herd of zombies. But I'm like, come on. Put on your big girl pants, cowgirl up, and put one right in his coconut.
Well, that's...
Because how many zombies has she killed that could have been, you know,
right,
her cousin, her uncle, her whoever. But no. She had to do the big old collapse because it was dear old zombie dad.
That's the thing. It just like, it didn't make any sense because just before she's like, oh, I'm trying to find the coordinates. I'm trying to whatever, even telling Mo like, oh, like you're looking for my dad or whatever.
Yeah. So what did you think they were going to do? Somebody else was going to do it?
Right. But I mean, that's the thing. And it's like, okay, it's been 7 years. Like, you've been basically doing this whole spiel to everybody else that parents are bad. We don't want you to lose and feel your feelings. And like, we've got better things. And now here we're on a mission to take all this crap to some other shore. And then she's like, right. Yeah. It just,
yeah, exactly. And while we're on the subject of the bird leadership family, you know, her frickin' brother is a noodle-spined weakling. You know, he couldn't put on his big boy pants and, you know, shoot Daniel's posse when he had every opportunity to and could have. But no, he couldn't do it. And then what happened? My sister. And he was like, oh, noodly, 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 noodly. And I'm like, okay, he's going to lay there until she turns and then he's going to get bit. And I was like, after all this time, after all this, you know, our dad gave us a mission and we're trying to make Padre go on, you know, Padre strong, rah. And then it was like, oh.
Yeah, it just,
So, while we're talking about goodbyes, I only have one complaint about Morgan and Mo sailing off into the sunset. So where conjecturally are they? They're somewhere on the coast. Let's just go ahead and say they are somewhere in the northern part of Florida or the southern bit of Georgia. Let's say they're in Savannah.
Yeah.
Where's Alexandria?
Virginia.
In Virginia or potentially in northern Maryland. How far away is that? Quite a ways.
Yeah.
So you're going to sail approximately 2/3 of the way of the outside of the continental United States in a Zodiac boat with no cover in the ocean.
Why not?
And just
sounds like a plan to me.
And just to be vaguely pedantic about that, in my home state, the state of North Carolina, which lies in between said Georgia and Virginia destination, our coastline is fondly referred to as the graveyard of the Atlantic. The reason being is that our coastline was well known for shipwrecks. And those are big ships that are designed to go on the ocean. Now, I will concede to the fact that there is such a thing as the intercoastal waterway, which is basically a protected boat channel that runs from the southernmost part of the states to the northernmost part of the states. However, comma, it's still close to the coast and you're in an open boat. And need I remind you that however far that is, you've only got what, a 5-gallon gas tank on your little outboard? So the fact that he's thinking he's going to take the boat to Virginia, which is what I'm assuming, since he headed off out into the water, is that not the best plan, Morgan. But who am I? Who am I to dicker with the writings of the dynamic duo that have guided us through the series up until this point? So to move on from the boats, the next thing is, so what about those Connex boxes?
Yeah.
Now, just to be editorial, they're approximately 40 feet long, 12 feet high, maybe 14 feet wide, and made out of steel. That in themselves makes them rather heavy. Now, we were led to believe that all these Connex boxes were full of contents, which makes them more heavy. So the question that I have is, so if they cleared out the zombies to get the stuff in the boxes, and we were led to believe by various bits of dialogue that they have put some of the boxes onto a larger vessel of some sort, the only question that I have is how?
Right.
Because you're not going to do as they have conjectured at one point that the children of Israel did when they were building the pyramids, that they had a huge group of guys and they put them on log rollers and rolled them to the ship, because then you still got to get them on the ship. So that means that, do they still have a crane that works? And that goes back to, well, how is this crane powered? Is it powered by electricity? Is it powered by diesel fuel? You know, do we have enough diesel to make the crane run? I just was going, okay, if they took the stuff out of the boxes, if they were putting them on smaller boats and they just unloaded them one at a time, that still requires a lot of toting and fetching and lots of people to do it.
Yeah, and time.
And time. So you're going to tell me that between the point that Morgan went on his killing spree and killed a great deal of the walkers, that while he was passed out and there was enough people that could get in there and carry off the stuff they needed and load it on the boat before Morgan woke up?
Yep, that's exactly what happened, because
I'm kind of going, okay.
No, and there was that scene towards the end where Madison was talking to all the kids about like, oh, hey, there's some papers that have like all the information so you can find out if your parents are one of them or alive.
Yeah.
Behind her was a big giant like cargo ship with all those containers on it.
Well, I saw the ship with the containers, but the question is, there were still a lot of containers there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, were those the empties? I mean, still, there's some logistic matters that don't quite add up here, kids.
Right.
I guess my thing is, if we could have sacrificed a little less of Morgan's arrivederci and maybe given us 10 more minutes with Madison and PADRE and Daniel's people, it just seems like that would have been the more compelling part of the story to tell, because this was just like, well, okay, here we all are. We're going to go back to the fort and settle down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I had to say it again. So after all this time, Morgan's been in Texas. He's done all this stuff. And now he wants to go find Rick.
Yep. Just
it's like, you know, this is like, you know, your 35th high school anniversary's coming up and you're thinking to yourself, well, you know, I haven't seen, you know, Lou Ellen in 35 years. I wonder what she's doing. You know, what spurred him after all this time? Just the fact that he felt better and his head was clear, that he goes, you know, I haven't talked to Rick in a long time. It just seemed like it was okay now.
Yeah.
And the fact that, again, he's using a walkie, which we know Well, we know they're magic walkies and they can talk a really long way, but see my previous referenced rant about the boat when I refer to the walkie-talkie. You know, you're talking about something that has 5-10 mile range at best. So we're going to assume that after Rick was in Alexandria, he decided that he wanted to go to Savannah. I just, and I guess the very last thing I have to watch sauce is that, was it just me, or did it look like that he buried Grace at Cheese Guy's graveyard? Was that not the impression that you got? Because of all the heads, because of all the names on sticks?
Right, it was, but I don't know. But
okay, if we assume that, the question is, so when did they go back and get Grace's body? And how far did they have to haul that to get to the place where Cheese Guy lived? Because as I recall, Cheese Guy lived like more towards Atlanta, maybe? Well, or was he all the way in Alexandria by then?
No, he was Atlanta.
Okay.
Like not in Atlanta, but
yeah, still in further north than they are now. I think somewhere between King County and Atlanta. Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
I just, like I said, just want to know, when did he go get her and how far did he have to haul her?
Right.
It just, and granted, there's no undertaker, so there's no embalming. So the longer it takes, it's in the summer in Georgia.
Okay, so let's think about this for a minute. If the Cheese Guy was in Georgia, which we know that he was,
mm-hmm.
We also know that the terminus was south of Atlanta, as was, I think, Herschel's farm. So it's possible that, the Cheese Guy was probably also south of Atlanta somewhere.
Okay.
So if they're in the Savannah area, let's just say somewhere, say between, I don't know, Atlanta and Macon. Because I always, I remember seeing that one map that Michonne had, and she pointed down to Macon, Georgia.
Mm.
And I think that was an indication of where terminus was. So
it's,
but I don't know.
In case you're curious, it is 248 miles from Savannah to Atlanta.
Right. Okay. So how far is it from Savannah to Macon?
Well, that's a good question.
I'm thinking it's approximately 120 miles less.
Oh, it's a lot less.
Okay.
There we go. It's only 83 miles from Atlanta to Macon.
Oh, well, yeah, Atlanta to Macon, but what about Savannah to Macon?
Okay, so if we're going to say it's 80 miles from Atlanta to Macon and it's 240 miles from Atlanta to Savannah, that means it's 160, 180?
Assuming that they're, as the crows fly.
No, that's on, that was highway mileage, but anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, whatever it is, it's still a long way to carry an uncured dead body in a bag.
170 is the answer. And it's actually...
I never said I was a math major.
Well, no, you were pretty close though. But yeah, it's 170, and there's actually an interstate that goes the entire way. Looks like I-16.
Yep.
So,
but anyway, I'm just I'll whatever the distance shenanigans come out to, I still say that's a long way for
to be hauling a body,
a guy and a kid to tote their dead mother.
Yeah.
/ girlfriend. So
they've always been very loose with their time and travels.
Well,
and all
I
that
realize
stuff, so
that. I do realize that.
But it's funny to like when you start thinking about it and like bringing up this discussion that's like, okay, well, that like, where's the like, then reality sits in and it's like, okay, well, yeah. So like they walking there or however much time, I was like, oh, so is that when they were putting up the boats or the stuff on the boats? And then it's just us for watching the show. It's all like, well, okay, well then how much time has passed? Are we like the last 6 episodes? Have we been doing weeks, days, months, years? It's like, what's going on? And it just, it just gets annoying.
Not to, The Walking Dead has had that issue from the beginning.
No, true.
Playing fast and loose with time.
Yeah.
And distance for that matter.
Yeah. It's just we've brought it up though too, where it's like, come on, it's like they could do an easy like little just quick montage to show that like, oh look, like Morgan was on a horseback or or whatever, just to show that there's some passage of time that he's traveling and it's just not appearing.
Once again, I still want them to do the Indiana Jones graphic. Do the map with the red line, and you can have a little clock in the corner and have the hands spin.
Yeah, just like, hey, look, some passage of time.
And
that would have been enough to understand that, like, okay, cool, some time passed. We don't care how much. Just
dun 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 dun.
I don't know why they don't use that more often.
Well, and like Kyle and I said, they did it with Terry Crews.
Tail. Yeah, the tail or the tail.
Yeah, the tail story, because they had the postcards and they showed the map, and you could do some sort of clever montage like that.
I mean, they do it with just like the sun going up and then the down and the moon rising. Just quick, like You do a like a time lapse shot of the sun coming up, and you show Morgan and Mo walking down the road. Yep.
And then you see the sun go down, and you see them sitting at a campfire, and you see the sun come up, and you see them walking again. You could do something.
Yeah. Well,
but like I said, we're asking for these guys to do something really creative and amazing.
Yep, and that's just not going to happen. Okay.
Well, anyway, that's all I've got.
Okay.
I think I've beat the week quite a bit. So
you did a good job as always. All right. Well, then that takes us into our sad and aw sauce.
Ivan from Minnesota says, Dwight's kid dying. That sucked and I didn't like it. Also, the show will probably ruin Troy, even if he comes back like Madison and everyone else it touches. It's like a plague, worse than the zombie virus. It's funny. Glennis from Toronto says, end of the line for Morgan on Fear the Walking Dead, though look forward to seeing Morgan and Rick reunite. I mean, they have to see each other again. I would agree. I hope that's what we're going to see. The tribute to the past that were so dear to Morgan when Morgan planted a kiss on Grace's grave of Benjamin, Eastman, the couple that helped him out, the Dorries, Jenny, Dwayne, and Grace. Renee from Atlanta says, Morgan losing himself again and seeing red was a good addition because it explains why Morgan didn't remember things when he met Rick. Finch dying was sad, and I'm so happy they didn't show that scene because it would have been too much for me. Even though I didn't care for Shrike and her brother, it was sad to see them crying like that, crying face. And lastly, Mike from Asheville says, Finch died off camera though. Dwight and Sherry leaving each other. They have had a heck of a run through this universe.
Indeed.
Yep. Yeah, and of course it's sad that Finch died, although it was kind of like I knew that was going to happen because there is no cure or even remedy that. So So I'm glad they didn't go that route. But yeah, it's sad. And of course, then that's just going to be the catalyst of how they're going to be able to get rid of Dwight and Sherry, like you were saying, LT.
Yep.
It's just like they had to end the stories and get them out.
And even though I had my words about them, I still had to include it in the sad sauce because this is the last time, one more time with Dwight and Sherry. So that was my sad.
Nope. It all had to come to an end at some point. I don't know if we're going to see more in other spinoffs or whatnot. Like like with Morgan, that could be a surprise. The Morgan Michonne, but that's also, we don't know how much time has passed from that too. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right. Well, that was it for the sad and awesome. So let's get into to feedback.
We can talk about it. Done talking. Time to listen.
All right. Well, Brian, do you want to continue on?
Well, sure, I can continue on. Why not?
Or read some of them, or doesn't work for me.
Let's see here. I'll start. Renee says, overall, a decent episode. I'm just glad it's over. And who was that heard Madison? No, I'll say it again. I'm just glad it's over. And who was that heard Madison on the walkie-talkie?
Who was that heard?
Oh, okay. I'll say it a different way. I'm just glad it's over. And who heard Madison on the walkie-talkie? I hope not. What's his name? The cult leader with
that's a
thinking man's face. Yeah. They keep mentioning my boo. I hope something is about to pop off. Where is Brian? Does that mean me?
Yes. Probably where's Brian? Me. There's Brian.
Here's your answer, Renee.
She'll be happy.
Here's your answer. Yes, we didn't really go into it, but
Brian está aquí.
I don't know Spanish, man.
Neither do I.
Okay. Where have I been? Well, today I actually filed for divorce. So I've been dealing with a lot of stuff in my personal life. I had a job, lost a job, started another job I make a lot less money than I did on my old job. So I work nights. I got my schedule changed around so that I'm off Tuesday nights now. So I'll hopefully be able to continue podcasting on Dead City. That's the whole reason why I did it. Yeah. So and in between there, I had some freelance work for my old employer. That has now fizzled out. So I have that, and I've started a social media marketing company. So I'm busy trying to get that off the ground. Yeah, so I've had a lot going on, and we just recently started up doing Star Trek again. LT and I earlier this week recorded, yesterday recorded an episode of the Strange New Worlds talk through. So I'm going to be doing 2 podcasts a week now, and yes, so
yep,
yeah, that's where I am, and that's where I've been. But now you will see more of me and hear more of me, and yeah. So sorry I've been away. I'll try to watch the last 5 episodes between now and next week and give my commentary.
You've already heard so much.
Yeah, I mean, I already know a lot that's happened. Obviously, several characters are dead or leaving, and I don't know what that means as far as the show is going to be for the second half. But right. If it puts Morgan in this Michonne Rick show, I'm all for it, but I don't know if that's what they're planning.
Yeah.
I gotta find Morgan.
That's the part of the trailer they didn't show you. That when Rick's on the shoreline and the helicopter's flying down, Morgan is going to jump out of the water like Rambo with his axe.
Well, anyway, that's the best way I can put it. That's what I've been up to a lot. So
she'll love to hear that. We're happy to have you here.
Well, I mean, things have been kind of chaotic over the last year. I moved here to Oklahoma to separate from my wife, and then 2 months later, she moved back in with me, and it had been pretty tense. Not to get too personal, but yeah. So I mean, it's good in a way that it's over. Hopefully, better times are ahead, and I'm hopeful that this business of mine will take off. I've already had some good positive things going on with it, so we'll see how it goes, though.
Cool deal. All right. Well, LT, you want to take Ivan?
I shall. Ivan from Minnesota says, most of this episode and season so far is dumb and pointless. I am slightly, possibly, maybe optimistic for the next half to be even watchable. Also, people just vanish from this show. Where is Strand? We answered that question. Where's Luciana? That's a good question. Where's the rabbi? That's a good question. Where's Charlie? She's dead.
Dead.
Where's the trucker people? And so many others. Only 6 more episodes, thank goodness, but I always enjoy listening to the pod. Great job, guys. And he gives us a big thumbs up.
Awesome.
When he says the trucker people, I'm assuming he means Mo Collins and
yeah.
Daryl Mitchell. What are those characters' names again? I forget.
Wendell
and
that other one.
Other one. That's good.
I've been so already traumatized by this show.
Wendell and Mo Collins' character.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on. I will tell you. Sarah.
Okay, Sarah. I knew it was something simple. I was just like, I can't make a connection.
Well, like I said, we know where Charlie is.
Yeah, she died. All right. Well, thank you, Ivan, as always. Mike from Asheville is next, and he says, this would have made a great series finale. I had to keep reminding myself it was only a mid-season finale. I was wondering what the heck the second half was going to be about. I guess we now know. It's Madison's show again, and her past will come back to haunt her. Such a unique plot line.
That is a side eye, sir.
A side eye? Okay. Thank goodness we get a break. This show is the beaten horse that keeps going. Yep. Will we see Morgan again, or is he going to make an appearance on Rick's show? I'd like to believe he will reunite with Rick. Otherwise, why put the transmission into this episode?
Why did they do anything, Mike?
Right.
They are the kings of the dangling plot thread.
Yeah. And I mean, it is a pretty big thing for them to have Morgan do. I mean, it is one thing, fan service, but that's such I
just was hit with a bolt of inspiration. Morgan is going to meet Daryl in Paris.
Oh, okay. Yes. He's going to fall asleep.
He's on a boat.
That's true.
I still don't understand that whole thing.
The Daryl, like,
yeah.
I mean,
And talk about like the one character that you would think would ever go to Paris.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's not by choice, but
yes, I know. But
a tale trip.
Right.
But it's like from this trucket port aboard this tiny ship.
But yeah, so what's the surrounding?
They needed Daryl Dixon went sailing with his crew.
Your action hero of The Walking Dead is Daryl, and if Paris is going to be filled with fast zombies, than or faster zombies anyway. Maybe not. What's the name of that movie? The Brad Pitt movie.
World War Z.
World War Z. Thank you.
Running zombies.
Yes, I don't think we'll see that again, but certainly we'll see faster.
Well, we'll see speed walking zombies. We'll see
Speed-
jogging zombies.
The mall walker
Yes, exactly.
zombies.
Mall walker zombies.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. So, anyway, Glynis from Toronto is next, and she says, I like the link up and explanation and reason Morgan was the way he was between TWD season 3 episode. She didn't put the episode, but it's the episode 12, Clear, and Morgan's stay at Eastman's, and then thinking every life is precious, not wanting to kill when he returned to Alexandria and Rick, which you saw Rick sort of roll his eyes at all the time, and then back to his clear mentality in this episode because of the loss of Grace, and then realizing it's the quality time you spend with your loved ones. As Madison stated, your loved ones aren't really gone. You always take them with you wherever you may go, and you don't protect the people you love by running away. That does nothing for their safety. Padre and the not-so-perfect prefects were really like the saviors, making those parents get down on their knees and had a gun trained on their back of their head. That was similar to what Simon commanded in The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 16, when the survivors were lined up in that clearing waiting for Negan's grand entrance. Unfortunately, Shrike realized a little too late of the error of her ways, and that Daddy wouldn't have resorted to her tactics at all. It could have been so different and good, but if everything was all hunky-dory at Padre, we wouldn't have had Fear the Walking Dead Season 8, smiley face. I don't quite get and really don't like the plot path here with Dwight and Sherry's decision to part ways. They didn't cause Finch's death. All the blame here was on Shrike and Crane with their macabre Walker bite tests coupled with radiation therapy. I mean, they got together after the death of John Dory Jr., realizing that time wasn't to be wasted, but I guess losing a child sometimes harms a relationship and you're not thinking straight because of that grief. I enjoyed the way they did the action scenes flip-flopping between the sane Morgan and insane Morgan seeing red, though I know it was also to save some budget too, smiley face. I would have wanted to see more of those walkers in the container yard, so Mo and company just let them out then.
Right.
Morgan teaching Mo the way of the bow like Eastman did with him, and Morgan did with Benjamin, and I think recall him teaching Henry too. Yes, all true. Keep your head on a swivel, Mo, with your defensive and offensive swings of the bow. In karate, a weapon is an extension of your body. Madison, you'll need to keep an eye on that dove bird. She doesn't strike me as quickly converted to doing good. She was the main one egging on those prefects to shoot those parents in cold blood, but maybe she's all talk and no action. And now, who the hell was that in the last scene with a hammer, map, sunglasses, and Alicia's bionic arm? I first thought it was Alicia, but no, that person had 2 functioning arms. I can't see it being Troy as he was clobbered over the head, good and proper by Madison, but maybe someone who knew Troy, but having Alicia's robotic arm and maybe Strand's sunglasses doesn't bode well for Alicia and Strand's well-being. Is this the next baddie then in Fear the Walking Dead's last hurrah? Question mark. Exclamation point. No. Another character I could throw out there that nobody mentioned was Walker. Kalataka.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's also from that era of season 3.
Yeah.
I could see him being there, although I think he's on another series, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, LT. I would say Strand makes the most sense there. I really can't see it being anybody else,
Yeah.
you know, and it does also stand to reason, you know, with Coleman Domingo's show. I know when I was, looking at AMCplus.com earlier, there was something about that, that show. And I think it was on episode 2 or something like that.
Well, I was going to say, between the commercials we saw for The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, and Coleman Domingo's show, I think we kind of know what's coming.
Yeah. Yep.
Because they showed a lot of those commercials during Walking Dead and Dead City.
Coleman Domingo show?
Yep.
Yeah.
They are advertising the poop out of it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I watched Dead City, but I didn't watch it live. I watched it on AMCplus.com. So
no commercials.
Well, I will say this, that when they showed it Sunday night on broadcast, they showed Dead City, Fear, Dead City, Fear, Dead City. So it was like 2 for 1 Dead Cities to Fears.
Well, I mean, that makes sense too, you know, because I think Dead City is the one that has all the hype, and it's a new show and has, you know, 2 big stars appearing in it from The Walking Dead. So, you know, it makes a lot of sense that they'd be pushing it. I mean, if I was running AMC, I would be pushing it too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So,
you know.
Well, you know what that means, Kyle?
Yes, that means we can get into The Walking Dead Dead City.
I think we finished up talking about Fear, and now it's time for The Walking Dead Dead City.
Take it away, LT.
We're going to start our discussion on this episode with The Walking Dead Dead City, Season 1, Episode 1, Old Acquaintances. It was written by showrunner Eli Journay. And it goes, consulting producer, co-executive producer, Walking Dead, all of Season 10. Co-executive producer, basically the run-up to meeting the Commonwealth.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
He's got some Walking Dead chops.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't on the show for very long, but I think obviously they probably brought him on to do this show. You know, so there were a lot of the producers, you know, started on one of the other shows and then moved on to yeah. So it makes sense that he is you know, like moved over.
Yep.
So, you know.
The director was Lauren Yaconelli, who's another another familiar name from Walking Dead.
Yeah.
The description from YouTube TV says, Maggie finds Negan and they travel to Manhattan. A marshal named Armstrong follows Negan, and they're meeting a quiet young girl named Jenny.
There's another name from the past.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, then let's get into our ratings. I will start first, and I gave it an 8. Makes my skin crawl atmospheres. Very good.
Well, unlike the last episode that we just went through, I watched this one. So I am good. I thought it was pretty good. I did have some questions. So I give it an 8.5 out of 10. And I said, cucarachas instead of cockroaches. Cucarachas on your face.
On your face.
Yes. Ew. Yes, the cockroaches were, and they talked a little bit about that on the, you know, inside segment, whatever they call it, after the episode on AMC Plus. So
that was particularly nasty. And I gave it a 9 out of 10. New York, it's a zombified town. it was something.
Yeah, it's the whole episode and just being in New York and how they portrayed it. That was really cool. It was just it was new because we haven't really been in this kind of atmosphere, but like location and that feeling again since like season 1 of
season
Walking Dead.
1, episode like 1, 2, maybe 3.
3, yeah. So it was it was fun. All right, well then that takes us into our listeners' ratings. I'll start with Glennis from Toronto, and she said 8 out of 10. It's raining men.
Hallelujah. Ivan from Minnesota gives it a 7 out of 10. Finally, a good spinoff.
Renee from Atlanta says 10 out of 10. Nope. And then, pukey face. I would have been booty naked trying to get those butts off me.
Yeah, that would have been hard to deal with knowing when there's like walkers just basically.
That would be correct. I would be butt booty naked myself.
All right. Well, that looks like that was all of our listeners' ratings. So let's get into our awesome sauce.
Well, we can kick off the listener awesome sauce from Glennis from Toronto, who says the atmosphere in this episode was outstanding, but hope there's more action scenes in the daylight too, as it was too dark in some scenes. Almost a black and white episode with the color all washed out.
Yeah. Had the same trouble.
There's a big ditto coming on that, Glennis.
I'll go next. Ivan from Minnesota says, so great to have Maggie and Negan back. Maggie's new knife boots are awesome. Negan is funny as ever. Manhattan looks great. The overall quality feels good. I really like the nasty cockroach and mouse scenes. The villain also seems formidable, and I like the Savior tie-in. Just a really strong start.
Mm-hmm. And Renee from Atlanta says, Maggie. Strong arm. Listen, what you don't do is play with Mother Bear about her kids because she will chew you up and spit you out. And then strong arm again. Negan being Negan, rolling on the floor laughing emojis. And quote, damn, I look good for a wanted person, end quote, which I have come to realize is a coping mechanism for Negan. That is true. When he feels concerned, he cracks jokes instead of looking scared. And the scenery and the visual effects are top tier. Manhattan looks like a dead city, hence the name. I love it. And then hug emojis. Yep. Agreed. All right, that was it for our listeners. Awesome sauces. So let's get into ours. And there was a lot of, there was just the whole tone. I mean, I was kind of saying it before, just being back in this kind of an atmosphere, back in this kind of a location, like that just kind of amped it all up. I do agree it was dark, a lot of scenes, which luckily, I guess when I was watching it on my television, like it was, it was at night, so it was like dark in the room, so I was like able to see pretty well. But then when I was doing my rewatch, I was watching on my laptop and then also watching on another computer screen, and it was like, oh gosh, like you could barely even see anything. They tend to have that issue here and there where it's kind of like to turn the contrast up or something. I don't know. The walkers falling from the sky I thought was so cool. Like, I don't know, that just it's fun to feel scared again. It's been a while since we've felt any kind of tension, any kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm like at the edge of my seat. Just that thought of like that falling over you and you're having to like basically run for your life and like dodge and stuff like that. I thought it was such a great, fun little kind of scene to add. And then I guess there's also like, I don't know who that woman was, and I don't know if she had anything to do with that, but I know one of our listeners mentioned something like that, but it was kind of like, I didn't catch that, so we'll have to go into that later. And the zip lines. I thought, of course, you're in the city where you basically can't go and walk the streets, so you have to come up with another mode of transportation. I just thought it was weird that, what's his face, like, cut it to kill the guy. It's like, how do you rerun another line if that was being used
the way you ran it the first time?
Well, I mean, sure, that's not something easy to do.
Well, I didn't say it was easy, but you basically have it set up where some of those buildings, there's no street between them. So you can actually go from rooftop to rooftop.
Yeah, true.
But basically you get one of your minions to say, okay, run downstairs,
grab the rope
and go across the street and, get on the top, and you could use a bow. You could shoot a smaller line across and then set up, some sort of windlass or pulley and pull the heavier line across. I mean, that's the way you do rope bridges. So there's a way to do it. The problem is you still have to have somebody on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool though. I mean, I guess we'll see that again. All right. Well, who wants to take it next?
Well, I just had one comment to make, and it'll kind of fit in with what LT's about to say. But I had a bit of three worlds collide, I guess you could say, three TV worlds. Prior to me being like really into The Walking Dead, the show that I was really into for the one season that it was on was The Event. And Željko Ivanek was in the cast of The Event. So it was good to see him. I haven't really seen him in anything since then. Of course, Star Trek Picard with Michelle Hurd, and The Walking Dead. And I'll let LT elaborate on his point, but yeah, that was just it. I knew Željko Ivanek was in this, and I guess you could also bring up what's his name, Gaius Charles. I've seen him on other shows, like I know he was on Grey's Anatomy for a little bit. I'm not as well versed in him, but anyway, it seems like there's a pretty good cast. And of course, I did notice that both Jeffrey D. Morgan and Lauren Cohan have executive producer titles to the name on this one.
Okay.
And I imagine that that's going to be what we're going to see on the other shows too. Like I imagine we're going to see that with the Rick and Michonne show and with Daryl show. We're gonna see those actors be executive producers, much like Patrick Stewart was on Picard. So
and Coleman Domingo was on Fear.
Was he an executive producer?
I think so.
Just a producer. I don't know if he was. Anyway, doesn't matter. I know that they were producers on the show. So in any case,
okay,
it's good to see that. So
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So let me get into mine. Like Brian already said, Michelle Hurd. Of all the people that I was not expecting to see, I was not expecting to see Michelle Hurd.
Yeah.
The funny part about it is, since Brian and I have done this and we've done Picard, it was funny seeing her show up because her character is sort of a bar hanging, sneaking around in the seedy parts of town kind of character in Star Trek. And then where do we end up seeing her? In a bar.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. Yes, it was a fairly short appearance, but I think it was one of those deals where it's like, hey, you've got a chance that you can play a part. You can be in The Walking Dead. Do you want to do it? And as many, actors who have been fans of the series have jumped at the opportunity, and we've seen how many one-offs of somebody that came in. I can't think of her name, but she was had one episode in main show, and it was some actress that I knew from somewhere else. But anyway,
and we've also seen like on this show, we've seen, or on Fear, we've seen Aisha Tyler, show up, and it's also worth saying too that Michelle Hurd is married to Garrett Dillahunt. If you didn't know that, so that kind of keeps it in the family, But
so now all we have to do is get him on Star Trek, and it'll be
exactly
both sides, both series. So.
Exactly. Yes, I could definitely see him like being a captain or admiral.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or a bad guy.
Yes.
He has played many a bad guy in his past. So
it's very true, because that's where I originally knew him from, when he was the evil Terminator in the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
And you guys remember that Kyle and Mark, when he was on the show, did not accept John Dory for being the nice guy that he actually was for weeks.
Yes.
And I was just like, I was not having it. And anyway, and you guys were all like,
well, it's because and it was like the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and just like the characters he played, I was just like, oh no, he's a bad guy. Don't trust him. And we both were just like, no, like he's gonna be evil. And of course, he's like now like the most lovable character that they should still be alive.
Yeah. I think you guys finally turned your opinions around with the episode where, the flashback with him meeting June.
Yep.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. That was the one. But seeing him on the island with the,
Yeah.
And then going to, everyone's favorite store. Come on, LT, say it. That's your line. It's got
to be. Hey, because it's Bill's store, the best equipped store in the apocalypse.
Exactly.
With a location near you.
Always near you.
And since I don't have the soundboard to do the segue sounder, just to get back to where I was at, the Marshal drives a Jeep Cherokee just like mine. And you might say, well, why is that awesome? Well, square body Cherokees are awesome. And it also proves that the 4-liter straight 6 Jeep engine is truly the engine of the apocalypse and is still running even now, because this is how many years after the collapse of society as we know it? This is like...
There are so many around here that I see.
Yeah.
They just keep going and going and going. And, they're like, I hate to say it, but they're probably like Detroit's last actual vehicle that lasted.
Yeah. Despite any small things that are sort of idiosyncratic to the series, those engines are really tough to kill.
Yeah.
And it's like, why, yes, I'm a happy Jeep owner, and why no, we're not sponsored by Chrysler, but
well, I have a Jeep as well. And so do you. We're all Jeep owners, actually. Yep. That's funny.
Well, there you go.
Yes. So they should sponsor us. Hint, hint. That would be nice. Anyway.
Okay, but more awesome stuff. I listed the garbage as awesome, but not so much just the garbage, but the whole way that they did the streets, that you're thinking, well, New York, you imagine after more Operation Cobalt and the military cut the bridges, that anybody who was not eaten is still going to be bagging their garbage and tossing it in the street. And we're assuming that in the midst of the chaos that the garbage men quit picking up trash. So it was awesome. It was amusing. And it was sort of apropos that you saw a huge mountain of trash bags that they were using as a barricade against the zombies. I also thought it was pretty cool the way they did that scene where Maggie is looking across at the island and you just saw that huge herd of zombies. And just to think of all the people that were trapped on the island, and since the bridges were cut, they couldn't get off, just how many zombies there are packed into every nook, crevice, and cranny of Manhattan Island, which I'm sure is part of the whole deal we're going to get into. But I thought they did a really good job with that. Since Kyle already talked about the skydiving zombies, I was going to talk about the floaties. That as they're going over on the boat, you see all the zombies floating in the water. And they're not all bodies, because you could see that some of them were like reaching their arms up as the boat went by. And I'm going, that's creepy. That's freaky. Of course, the problem is, I guess there's an eddy in the current of the East River that they didn't all wash out to the ocean. Or perhaps that some of the less agile zombies continually fall into the river at some point to keep the stock of floaty zombies intact. Or maybe the floaty zombies are dog paddling to stay in place. We don't know.
And I'm guessing maybe the salt content of the water lets them float better.
Not that point in the East River. That's still,
no.
Well, of course, somebody else would argue that for all the toxic waste and chemicals in the water, it's probably just pickled them.
Right.
I think the last awesome thing I'm going to throw out is just the cinematics, whether they did it with live shots or live shots that they, artistically altered, but the whole scenes going into the city. And then once they were on the streets, just the fact that the one thing that a lot of people fail to understand that goes along with your skydiving zombies is that basically you've got a series of steel and concrete canyons that there aren't really, there's not a lot of open space, that you've just got streets and then vertical surfaces for buildings.
Right.
So when they were doing the shots, I thought they did that pretty well, showing that there's not a lot of places to hide. It's not
it's very tight.
It's not like some of the towns you've seen in the main show where there were, an open lot, or there were spaces in the buildings. That this is all pretty much just street building alley, street building alley.
Yep. It's really, really good. Made from good tense moments.
Yes, it did.
All right. Well, then, if that's all the awesomes, let's get into our week.
You're worthless and weak.
And it looks like we only got one this week.
Yep. I'll give it.
And I just wanted to put a preface. It's any of you that were not able to get comments in, put them into next week, and we will cover them then. Because I don't know if people forgot or ran out of time, and it's two shows.
Well, yeah, I mean that often happens when you have to watch two, and I don't know as far as most of our viewers or participants are in the U.S. and Canada, so I think they're all getting it night of, but I'm not sure whether or not people in the UK, what are they getting this show, and if they are, is it in time with everybody else, or is it
right? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, anyway, just going to Renee from Atlanta. She says, I don't like the Marshals either. One villain is enough. I don't want all of this crap, and he seems a little off too. The way he threw that lady to the groaners, as they say, and the way he was talking about mutilating Negan. I don't like it, and I believe he has Negan's wife and child. Are we talking about the villain, or are we talking about the Marshal?
We're talking about the Marshals.
The Marshal.
Okay. All right. I believe that's why Negan killed those people. He probably brainwashed them, because how the heck does he know about Negan's past? And he seems to gun hold about killing him. What does that mean? What does that mean? Is that what she meant to say?
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. So, I mean, he's got he wants to kill him.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I could be wrong, but something is amiss when it comes to him. I mean, there was the line about him having a family and, you know, he was trying to speak, you know, kind of to understand Maggie's motivations, whatever. I don't know. I tend to think that he may be kind of like bad guy becomes good guy.
Yeah.
But we'll see with him.
Yeah.
You know, we won't know. I think, like, if it's true that he actually is a family man and he comes to understand the truth about, you know, this Croatian and him holding Herschel, which I have some things to say about that. Then, you know, perhaps he will kind of turn sides, at least when it comes to, you know, Maggie, and help out Maggie.
Well, and it just seemed like that had to be the driver to sort of push them on their way to get there. But like you're saying, it just seems like we've got too many or not necessarily bad guys, but we've got, you know, too much peril in too many directions, unless they're trying to work the angle that, you know, the marshal's after Negan and Maggie's after the Croat. So there's got to be two competing
power
storyline drivers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Renee, for your weak sauce. So let's get into ours. I'll let you guys take it away because I didn't really have anything to add more than what you said.
Well, I talk about it more on the what sauce specifically, but like this Croatian guy, I don't understand him. I don't. There really wasn't a lot, at least that I saw. There really wasn't a lot kind of like explaining this character's motivations. And that's why I put this specific part in here. I said, why did he kidnap Herschel exactly? Like, what's the motivation there? Just because he knows that it's Maggie? Like, was he there? And I've got in the backdrop here, my background is the famous, you know, season 6 season finale lineup with everybody. And we know how that ended with, you know, Glenn and Abraham. Spoiler. Anyway, if you don't know that story by now, you know, but anyway, I don't really understand the motivation there. And for that matter, like, okay, so what? He's like the Negan in Manhattan. I mean, is that what he's come to be?
Yeah,
that's all fine, but I don't understand why he kidnapped Herschel. I don't get it.
Yeah, and like, because Maggie was talking about it a little bit because she was like, well, we got raided, and then they kept coming back because I guess, I'm not sure if she said that they were giving them grain or giving them something. And then she said something about, oh, they kidnap people or whatever, or something along those lines. So it's kind of like, yeah, is he kind of like the Negan of Manhattan where he's getting resources and found?
Yeah, but if he's in Manhattan, why is, you know, I guess I was struggling with so they're going off site to do their raiding, which means there's got to be an easier way to get on and off.
Yeah.
So it sort of makes me wonder about what's the point of having your base there if it's so bereft of resources.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe
and
we'll find out.
And, you know, there was a line, something about like, basically they took, Hilltop and they moved it. So,
that's right.
You know, so I'm guessing by that, like the Hilltop was in Virginia. sounds like they moved it more north somewhere. So, where, I don't know, but obviously they must have moved it closer to New York City. So,
right.
Like Pennsylvania, maybe, Delaware. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maryland, maybe. I don't know. New Jersey. I don't know. Something like that. But like, why? I don't, there really wasn't any time spent in the episode kind of explaining this guy and who they were. And maybe we'll see that next week. But I just didn't understand. Like I thought, okay, this is potentially interesting character, a more psychopathic Negan, right?
Mm-hmm.
In theory. And we kind of get that with, him cutting the wire on that guy.
Right.
But I don't really understand that whole thing,
Yeah.
It's the whole on first blush, you go, this is a bad guy who's been out raiding the countryside. He kidnapped Herschel for whatever reason to get leverage over Maggie. Maggie's going to get him. She ends up getting Negan because apparently the guy's looking for Negan, or she thinks Negan can be of use to her. But the more you think about it, the more you start looking into that plot hole going, well, why is he doing this? And what's the real reason? And like I said, first pass, it looks really good. The more you think about it, it starts getting some divots in it.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm going to say as a week, and I don't see anybody talking about it, so I'm going to add it as a week. Yeah, I don't see it anywhere, and I'm just checking to make sure nobody said anything about it in the other sauces, and I don't see it. Of course, I'll keep going, and probably Glynis will say something about it. Because Glynis and I always think alike. So, anyway. So, Michelle Hurd is basically running a bar/hotel/brothel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is somehow in the New Babylon jurisdiction. So, I don't know. They're just kind of figuring that out now. Like I didn't understand that either. That was awfully convenient. It seemed like, she had been running this establishment for a number of years, and it just now that he shuts them down, it just seemed awfully convenient, number one, and unbelievable, number two, that if this New Babylon, things are so tightly controlled, how that place could exist in the first place.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of like a apocalyptic OnlyFans. I have to say that. Anyway.
All right, Yeltsy.
Okay. Well, for my weeks, I'm going to start off with the bottom of my list as in the paper. They're teasing us with New Babylon. So apparently this is going to be the Commonwealth / micro CRM society that has sprung up somewhere. And I think it was good that we found out that, yes, they have these marshals and they have some sort of law and order, even though it may be rough frontier justice kind of thing, and maybe a touch on the draconian side or a touch on the Judge Dredd side.
Jury executioner.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's a nice tease, but that's something that's like, it's a dangling thread that I want tied up. I want more information on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
My next thing for the week sauce is, of course, one of my perennial week sauce, is that obviously dead sidekick Marshall doesn't realize that he lives in a 360-degree world. It also goes back to our old premise of obviously the zombie virus makes you deaf and blind. Because I'm sorry, if I was trying to cover the inside of the building and I'm constantly hearing the groans and finger scrapings of the large number of zombies on the outside, I'm going to be more concerned with who's trying to get in rather than who's trying to get out. Because one would think that anyone inside would have enough sense to see that there's a large number of zombies at the door, and that would not be a usable exit. Frankly, I would have thought that the mere presence of all the zombies at the door would do far more than me standing there trying to look menacing with my trench coat and my gun. But that's me. Perennial point number 2, after Maggie knocks Mr. Chatty Marshall main character out, she took his rifle away from him and then promptly discarded it. And as always, what's LT's number 1 rule of the apocalypse? Take the gun.
Right.
If you don't have a gun and you knock out somebody that has a gun, now you have a gun because you're going to take it.
And you know what? If the gun had no more ammo, take the gun anyway, because you may find ammo, and it may, and for that matter, it's a pretty big gun, and could probably take out walkers just with
it's a rifle,
right?
And guess what? It only takes a couple of seconds for you to go patty-pat on his coat pockets and see if he's carrying an extra magazine, and you can relieve him of it, and then you have more bullets. That's LT's rule number 2, take the stuff.
Yes.
The next thing that I was going to mention is that if one was considering going into a foray into the big city, I would carry a hammer. Because when they're sneaking down the alley there and they go to the door and they go jiggle, 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 and the lock's locked. Okay, so making noise by busting the doorknob off to get inside would make noise and potentially draw walkers. But once you're inside, you can bar the door so that they stay outside.
Yep.
And as we have seen on many occasions, a hammer is also a convenient instrument for which you to dispatch walkers. Point number 2, carry a flashlight. Have they gotten to the point where there's no batteries? Because obviously somebody has radios. The bar was lit. Now, granted, they had some candles, I think, but
there was still electric power.
Yeah. Carry some sort of illumination device. Even if it's one of those little gyro powered flashlights that you have to squeeze the handle to make it work. Flashlights are your friend, especially when you go into the big city in the dark and that you're going into buildings which are not lit. So they're dark because light is your friend. While we're going on to this other thing, obviously, we've got gas again, because how many running cars did we see this episode?
Several.
And we actually had a boat.
Yeah.
With a motor. And boats with motors and cars take some sort of fuel. So are they making alcohol now? Did they find a stockpile of gasoline that hadn't spoiled? It just seems to me that they tend to go on with this, they have cars, they have no cars because they can't find gas. And then all of a sudden, when we were doing the Commonwealth arc, they have cars again. They have cars that run. So I was just going, okay, so I guess New Babylon has a distillery.
Yeah. It's like that point in the, it's been this long that, I guess we just have to assume that, they figured out how to do that, and
right.
And
even
they're at that level of this new.
But even though I made the point of touting the 4-liter straight 6, you still have rubber hoses and rubber gaskets and batteries and
right.
You know, things and tires and brakes. You know, things that you have to make a car go that you don't necessarily have any more of since the world collapsed. So it just, not that it was that objectionable, but it's still, we've gone to the point where it's like, there's no more gas and there's no more cars. So we're all on horseback and we're all on foot again. And then here we are, we're back to motorcycles and cars.
True.
So it's that point of, this is supposedly later, you know, this is like years after. So where did they get the gas? So that is all my weak sauce.
All righty. Well, you good ones you got there. Because it does kind of like, sometimes I just kind of think we'll just move on. We got more to talk about.
No, the biggest thing is, Kyle, it's like I said, you watch it, you're going, wow, this is great. And then the longer I think about it, the more I start going, now wait a darn minute.
Yes. Like, I want to see where you're getting this gas, and you're like replacement hose for that, vehicle. Yeah. No, true.
And, you see Maggie driving, like the chase car in a Starsky and Hutch episode. And God, I just realized I did it again. For those of you not old enough to remember, that was a cop show in the 70s where they did a lot of tire squealing. Not the crappy ass movie with Owen Wilson.
No. Oh, all right. Well, let's continue on. Let's get into our what sauce.
What?
And our what sauce kicks off with Renee from Atlanta, and she goes, "What the hell sauce?" And she says, first the rat coming out of that walker's mouth, and then the freaking bugs. I was totally creeped out. I felt like bugs were crawling on me, and I'm still feeling antsy. Pun intended. I hate bugs, and I hate rodents. And she has pukey faces. And she finishes up by saying, the Croat looks good and sounds scary. I don't like him at all.
Mm-hmm. He is.
Indeed. And he tends to play that kind of character.
Yep. True. Does it well. Next is Ivan from Minnesota, and he says, did that guy mean to shoot his buddy while aiming for Negan? It was so jarring, but honestly, that'd be me. I'm not good with guns. LOL.
Thanks, Ivan. I'll keep that in mind whenever you're on our apocalypse team.
All right. Well, that was everybody's what sauces that we got. So that goes into ours. Brian, what did you have?
Well, it's a continuation of what I was saying in my weak sauce. I don't really understand the motivation of this villain, except for him to be a psycho. So, what's he doing? Why does he have Herschel? What's his motivation? And, I kind of sound, I don't know, like.
You're almost getting method actory.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of am, but I just, other than the fact that he's somewhat creepy and, he's a former savior that we, really never knew about, which I buy, but, I wonder, okay, what happened with him? Where did he go? When did he leave the saviors? And we didn't really get a lot of answers about him. He was really, they didn't really, I was expecting a longer episode, to be honest. It was pretty short. It almost seemed like it was kind of cut off. So, those questions weren't answered at all. And, I don't understand, what I'm seeing with them. I don't understand why someone would pick Manhattan as a headquarters if it's infested with walkers. I mean, why would you want to go there? I mean, it seems like New Babylon would be a better place to assuming that's like, slightly upstate New York or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like I'm picturing New Babylon to kind of be around where Jeffrey D. Morgan actually lives, and because we know he's maybe a couple of hours outside of New York City. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe that's where they are. And, I don't really understand a lot that's going on with that part of the story. So, okay, they took Herschel. Why did they take Herschel? Why were they seemingly, raiding a settlement like so far south? Because even if it's in New Jersey or Pennsylvania or something, that still seems a long ways to go for, like if they're raiding, why are they not trying to raid New Babylon? Is New Babylon just tougher, or I don't know. So
right. Yeah, it just seems like they're going a pretty good clip to do raids for stuff, and then they've got to haul it back. Unless,
like you said,
this is just his hideout.
Right.
Like you said, LT, yesterday, you said it was a long road getting from there to here in a different context.
It's true.
And I see that in this case. Like, I don't understand what I'm seeing. We don't know, like, what's the name of these guys,
Yeah.
Are there guys? I mean, all I saw was the Croat and maybe two or three other.
Yeah, there's like two.
Guys.
There's like 2 or 3 side flunkies, and that's about it so far.
And I didn't understand. Okay, so the guy that they killed, or that he killed by letting him escape, and then cutting the cable. What did he do? I mean, what was his story?
They kept hinting that he had some sort of information.
Yeah, exactly. But
I think the biggest thing that I see that you're saying is, we know he's the bad guy because he's obviously the bad guy because he's got Herschel hostage. It's just he's not very nuanced at this point. We don't know why he's doing anything. We don't know, any of the organization he's built around him. We just know that he's the bad guy. Yeah,
we know. And, it was already said that, we kind of have two bad guys right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have, for whatever reason, New Babylon is a bad guy, or the Marshal is a bad guy. And I said earlier that I'm thinking that maybe he's not going to be a bad guy for the whole stretch.
Right.
But we have this other bad guy who's a bad guy. Like, we understand he's a bad guy. Like I said, he's more of a psychopathic Negan. I get that. Like, Negan without the charm, I guess you could say another way to put it, without the swagger. But
yeah,
I don't.
Well, maybe that's. Hopefully they reveal some of that, because you're right. It is that does make it confusing, because it's kind of like we don't know where these people stand on what level of the totem pole, and are they even related, or is it just like one controls the other?
Yeah, we know the motivation for the Marshal because they pretty much laid all that out for us.
Well, right, yeah.
He basically, gave us his info dump through the bar and the other scenes that he had. And it's not that he's necessarily a bad guy, but he is going to be, he's pretty relentless in what he thinks is right and wrong. And he's convinced that Negan is the bad guy and that he's going after Negan.
Yeah.
But we got so much less of that with the Croat. We just know he's the bad guy because Maggie said so, and we saw him, we saw him give that guy the dirt dive off the building.
Mm.
And obviously the guy that took the dive, we know he'd been tortured because he had all those welts and cuts on him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, like maybe we could accept the fact that he's like maybe, I don't know, an offshoot of the Saviors or something. He's like a satellite. And if you recall, like we had these satellite offices of the Saviors, and maybe the Croat ran one of them and just ended up going north and eventually, said, well, we can be our own saviors.
It's the Manhattan franchise of Savior Code.
Yeah. It's, kind of like Kentucky Fried Chicken in Canada. That's, if you don't understand that topic, it's basically Kentucky Fried Chicken was, actually in Canada was franchised by the Colonel himself, and he had a different spin on it. So the recipe, not so much the chicken, but everything else is a little different in Canada. I think still is. Like the coleslaw is different. And anyway, that's the way it was 20 years ago. I don't know if it's still that way now, but as far as I know, it is. But it's kind of like, maybe he took his franchise of the Saviors and started his own, when the Saviors kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
But we don't know. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is we had a whole like season 6 build up to Negan. Most of the second half of season 6 was about the Saviors, and it even started earlier than that, I think, with the introduction of Dwight and Sherry, actually. Mm-hmm. So it went into most of the season prior to actually meeting Negan. We don't expect that. We don't need that. We got some of that with the Whisperers too. I don't think we necessarily need that either, but I would just like a little more meat on the bone when it comes to this whole thing. So I don't. That's where I lost a point and a half, was kind of on this part of the story. Yeah. So I could be really positive on this show once, like if next episode they kind of flush that out a little bit more and I understand it. But my take, and I only got to see the episode once, so there's that. But I wanted a little more on the bad guy. Yeah. So, all right, that's it for me.
Something in between what they did and the introduction of the Saviors. They don't need to have that much lead time, but at least a little bit more than just like, here's the bad guy. Ta-da.
Yeah. True. Or just a little, I don't know, explanation of what they were doing and where they come from and stuff like that. Just a little more dialogue. And that's why I say I kind of expected the episode to be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that you don't get. Like when you watch the show on AMC Plus, every time you watch it, you get this 7 or 8 minute, behind the scenes kind of thing. And it explains stuff to a point. I didn't get through all of that, by the way, with this. So, and of course I missed Talking Dead as well. So if they talked about it on there, I didn't see it. So anyway, I'm kind of getting at it from not having complete information here, but I'm still saying that was my drawback. Anyway, that I've beat the dead horse here. So let's move on and go to ULT.
Okay. Well, for starters, my first week sauce was nothing like Marshall Deadeye Dan there shooting his back up.
This is what, though? It's what sauce?
This is what? Okay.
It all fits, though.
It all
all fits.
But yeah, he shot his back up. And I'm sorry, Ivan, even if you're not really a gun person, they were far enough apart that you kind of had to be a little deliberate when he took his back seater out. It's bad enough that Mr. I'm going to leave you at the door again, didn't hear the door cracking, didn't, turn around with any degree of speed whenever the group of walkers burst through the door. It was like that slow-mo. What? Shkaboom. But yeah, I'm sorry. He lost, the marshal lost a lot of badass points in my mind when those two were that far apart. And the first thing he does is like, pow. And his guy goes kathump. I actually have to complain a little bit about the zipline scene, only in that, okay, he cut that cable with a pair of bolt cutters that, obviously, besides having frightening eyebrows, he must have a lot of forearm strength because I don't know if you could have cut that cable quite that well with a pair of bolt cutters. And the fact of, okay.
Yeah, it was a bit of a thick cable.
Since we were talking about the proximity of buildings, are we to assume that the building that they were on had no buildings to either side of it that one could either leap onto or scamper up towards?
Right.
Because it just seemed like to me that to take the zip line is probably your least best route of escape, only in the fact that it leaves you open to someone cutting the cable.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did that intentionally because I know.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt they did it intentionally.
Yeah. I just mean from like a show setup kind of thing, because they had talked a lot about how there were zip lines from building to building in the show. And I think that they used this scene to kind of show that, but nevertheless, I don't know. I was a little underwhelmed by it. Number one, because I would have thought like, okay, how do you stop?
Wow.
You're on the zip line. Okay, great. So you're traveling from, point A to point B, seemingly, in a downhill incline so that you actually move. But how does one stop?
Put a mattress.
Okay.
Make it to where the cable has enough run at the end that you can put your feet down and do the Fred Flintstone slide. There's a few ways you can do it.
Yeah.
I guess the next thing that I was going to ponder on, and this all goes into the scene where Maggie and Negan and soon to be dead Marshall are sneaking into town. If you're trying to find a place to hide, or you're trying to get off the street, it just seems like that some of those buildings should have had fire escapes. And I was thinking, you find a fire escape, you pull the ladder down, you get on the fire escape, then the zombies can't get you, and you can kind of hang out until, I don't know, the sun comes up. Because the problem that I was having was them moving in the dark, because there are some places in there in those scenes where there was a lot of ambient light, and I'm not really sure where it was coming from because I don't think the street lights are working. And if the buildings, if the buildings are tall enough, it's still going to be darker than poop down on the street. And that's just, having been downtown with some power outages and at night and things of that nature where there weren't any lights. Yes, I understand starlight, moonlight, but that would have thrown the shadows in a different direction, and it's still not going to help you depending on where the moon is oriented. And as dark as it was just not evenly lit in a uniform manner, despite the creepiness. And I guess the next thing, if you can't find a fire escape, look for a parking deck. But that's just me being me. As we said before, while the darkness made the episode creepy and it added to that effect of suspense and all that stuff, it was a little too dark. That I actually had to mess with my TV a little bit and kind of up the brightness a little bit, because it was hard to see some of the things they were doing. Just like I didn't see all the roaches the first time I watched it.
True. Yeah.
Just because it was so dark. And I'm glad Renee said something, because I really wasn't sure what was coming out of that walker's mouth. I couldn't tell if he was getting ready to do the Gene Simmons tongue on him or what. And I appreciate the fact that she said it was a rat, because I can see that now. Just as a side note, it's obviously the Green Girls know how to hold a grudge. Is it just me, or did not Maggie and Negan kind of work things out a little in the main show? Maybe just a little.
Yeah, I had wondered that too, because it seemed like the hostilities had come back, which I thought that they had kind of patched things up. She seemed more pissed off at him than the start of the big subway trip.
Yeah.
And like I said, maybe it's just me, and maybe the fact of Herschel getting kidnapped is what brought all this back. But it just seemed like that for whatever she had worked out with Negan before, we were back to square one at the start of this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good.
I had the same kind of feeling.
Because, like I said, Maggie definitely is. Because how long has it been?
It's supposed to be like 2 years.
As big as Herschel is, it's been, let's say 13, 14 years now.
I don't think it's been that long.
Okay, how about 12? I'm just saying, the kid they've got playing Herschel looks pretty big.
No, I agree with that. But I think
that's why I'm saying he looks definitely teenagery.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going. Yep, just can't let it go, can you, Maggie? And I guess the other thing is just this dangling wanted poster plot line they're going with, because I just have a feeling they're going to try to work that back in somehow later, even if they get the marshal all, on their side through all this. And I don't know, like I said, I just have a feeling that he's going to be, the relentless bounty hunter type. And I keep saying, well, you know how that works out, right? It's like you take him aside and go, Bubba, it ain't going to be good for you if you do this. But it just seems like it was partially a driver for what was going on. It was still there, but the less fleshed out Croat driver seemed to be the bigger push.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how they're going to get that all worked up, but I mean, that's about it for me for what.
Alrighty.
And in case somebody is going to be thinking again in the back of their heads, well, gosh, LT, you're being awfully critical about this. Why did you rate it so high? And in the grand tradition of any talk through media podcast that I am on, it is my duty and my right to be super critical about things and still love the show, because it is the way.
Yep.
So
there's a show that we haven't covered.
Yeah.
Indeed, sir. So, shall we move on to the sad sauce, Kyle?
Yes.
Shall we move on to the sad sauce, Brian?
Yes.
All right. I'll go ahead and start with Ivan from Minnesota. He says, seems like maybe Negan lost his wife and kid because he was awfully quiet about them. We'll probably find out closer to the end. True. I agree with that.
Oh, we've got to have some revelatory Negan and Maggie time, as we have had previously. So, well, Renee from Atlanta says Negan telling his story about his father standing him up all the time is more than likely the reason why Negan has a soft spot for children, because he knows how it feels to have a parent let you down. Sad face. Negan definitely has some type of childhood trauma that turned him into the person he is, which I feel we have all have some kind of childhood trauma, some more extreme than others.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like my childhood trauma was more in adulthood, but I don't know.
All right. Well, that was all of our sad and awe sauces from our listeners. So let's get into ours. And you guys already talked about it all. Or it was just funny because I was like, as soon as I saw her, I was like, Rafi, But good to see her on the show. And yeah, it was just sad to see her go.
Yeah, it's like, Rafi, yay, Rafi. No.
Yep. All right, LT.
Well, and I've just got two things. One of them is, as we've all said, and some of the listeners have said, Negan and Maggie, both of them, the way they have dealt with their life trauma, because you can say that both of the things that have happened to them have driven them to do what they do. And on the outside, I would say who's better off for it. But I think that is going to be part of the undercurrent of this is, tragedy and trauma and how we deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And my other bit of sadness was the way that they dangled Silent Jenny out. That, here's this girl that's running with Negan, and he's like, she doesn't talk, which always bothers me because every time you have a character that they say she doesn't talk because she's traumatized, that, she's being chatty Cathy to somebody.
Maybe.
There was some show that I was trying to remember. It's like, she doesn't talk. She's been abused and whatever. And then it turns out later that, she was informing on everybody. And when she does talk, she just won't shut up. But,
what a show that was. Yeah.
I can see the scene, but I couldn't tell you what it was to save my soul. Yeah. But yeah, I think that they set that up and you kind of get that. You start having some feels for her because she's sitting there, holding the bunny and she won't talk. And Negan's like, don't worry, stay here. I'll be back. And you keep thinking, is she going to end up being Aunt May at some point? Is she going to turn up later? Is she going to turn up later with somebody holding a gun to her head and, to make Negan do something? Or are they just going to dangle this over us and resolve it later and we'll go, okay.
I guess we'll find out.
Yep.
All right, Brian, did you have anything?
No, I mean, just basically, I was kind of sad to see Michelle Hurd go as well. I was hoping that she'd be on for a few episodes, but oh well.
Yep.
And sad to see that Herschel was taken as well.
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't write this down in my wet sauce, but so where is Negan's wife and child? Where are they exactly?
We don't know.
Right. We think of with the New Babylonian people. That's assuming that the Marshal has them or something.
Okay.
I think so. That's my understanding.
We shall see.
Yeah, I might have to go back and look at that because that was sort of another one of those dangly bits.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, let's keep moving on. We're pushing almost 3 hours. So, all right. Well, that takes us into our feedback.
We can talk about it. Done talking. Time to listen.
All right. I'll start with the first one that comes from Renee from Atlanta. She says, this is going to be epic if they stay on course. And I don't expect every episode to be a 10, but I hope they at least stay the course because I've seen those shows start out good and then take a deep dive. She's like, and I think she said, I'm talking about you, Fear, or From. Not sure what that is. I need this show to keep the suspense and tension going, and the groaners need to be in every episode. I need it to stay dark and dirty and look like an apocalypse. And I don't want a backstory on anyone unless it's pertaining to the zombies, please, and thank you. And then peace of love, guys. Peace. Yeah, I think I definitely want to see the walkers a little bit portrayed more, and I think we're going to, because I know we've seen some, like, there's been some photos and stuff, or like some videos of like just really crazy looking walkers and stuff, like, that they end up with. Yep. But they always, it's always good to see them take those effects and all that stuff and keep playing with it and keep making them better and better, because with Fear, it's like a lot of the times there was like really great walker effects and like different types of walkers, even though the show wasn't quite doing as well, but it was just like that was they were having fun with that. So I think we're going to get some of that.
Yep.
All right, next.
Well, it looks like you want to do that one, or you want me to?
I'll do it, sure. Ivan from Minnesota says, Dead Island, it's Dead City, this FYI, is really fun so far, and it seems like it's going to be a nice, condensed, clean story. It has the feel of classic Walking Dead, with walkers being a threat, and I'm really intrigued by the story and setting. Plus, I will always take more Negan and Maggie. Mm-hmm. I agree with all that. It did have a good Walking Dead kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
It was much more Walking Dead than some of the other shows that we've seen within the universe.
Right. Yeah, like Fear.
Definitely not Fury. and definitely not World Beyond. It was very Walking Dead adjacent, and maybe some of that had to do with the fact that it was Megan. I guess what do you call those? I shipped them.
Yes.
Megan. Yeah. So anyway, Negan and Maggie, I think that of course has something to do with it, that it's very much an extension of the show, the original. But also I don't know, it like my reservations about the Croat aside, I think there's a lot of potential there for it to be really interesting, and I'm hoping that Manhattan kind of has a personality of its own, kind of like in a lot of ways how how Virginia and I guess like Atlanta was very much a personality of the show. It's like how we say in Star Trek, like it's usually like the station or the starship that the show is based on becomes like its own character of the show. And I'm kind of hoping that Manhattan kind of takes that kind of feel where it's very much a character in the show, you know, and because there's all sorts of potential there for things we've never seen on either show. Like you've got these like massive skyscrapers,
right?
And we have seen some with subway tunnels, but you know, there's a lot of subway tunnels there. We have the ocean, we have, you know, potentially other boroughs to go into. We have, you know, these big ass tunnels and bridges to cross. So there's a lot of potential there for, and just, you know, a crap ton of zombies, like assuming for whatever reason they didn't napalm the crap out of Manhattan, you know, there's if they for some reason weren't able to do that or weren't very effective at it, then there's going to be a crap ton of zombies there, like maybe more than we've ever seen on any show.
Yeah.
So so that also brings the potential for a lot of peril and just like, you know, of course things like rats and cockroaches and, you know, all the wonderful things that New York City was known for. Bed bugs. They'll be attacked by bed bugs.
Or can't find a place to sleep.
Giant bed bugs now, you know, if because of the zombie apocalypse, the bed bugs are like the size of cockroaches and, you know. Anyway, so there's a lot of potential here.
Yep. I agree. So hopefully they can cash in on some of that because it'll be a lot of fun to see. All right. Well, who wants to take Glennis?
I'll do Glennis. So Glennis from Toronto says, how does Marshall Armstrong know what Negan did to Glenn and that Maggie was pregnant at the time? Does he know someone from the survivors group, or is he in cahoots with the Croat, or was he just told that by the Croat? That name just rolls off the tongue. Yes, it does. I couldn't quite make out the note that Marshall Armstrong was reading, but looks to be an address in New York City that's important to him somehow. Is Marshall Armstrong such a bad shot, or did he purposefully kill the junior marshal so he couldn't be used as collateral or give away their tactics? It's a good question. Maggie, when you knocked out Marshall Armstrong, you threw away a perfectly good rifle. Why? Indeed, Glennis, indeed. So, Herschel is tied up in that chair like Glenn was in The Walking Dead with Merle and the governor. The Croat is going to try and break him by playing with his head by threatening to use those torture weapons on him. Ingenious defense weapons to drop walkers or bodies from the top of the building. Watch your backs with that lady for sure. I'm sure we'll be formally introduced to her next episode or two. Funny that she blew out Negan's light. So who is next to try the Croat zipline? Herschel or Negan or both? So the interest in the series is sparked. So look forward to what's in store in the next few episodes. And we definitely are.
Yeah, she made a point about that guy, the mysterious lady that was looking out at Negan and Maggie and them when they were like, when the walkers' bodies falling. I didn't get that being that that woman was doing that, but I could be wrong. I just thought that they were making noise and that walkers were just in buildings, you know, would be falling over when they hear something. Because
that was kind of the way I had it feeling. If you had all these walkers, you know, in their 13th floor apartment,
right,
and they start hearing something out in the street, and they go, and go,
and then they just
wandering to the broken window, and they go whoop right out the door.
Right. Yeah. So it's we'll find out who this woman is, but yeah, I wasn't thinking that was something that she was using to block them from something, but guess we'll find out. All right. Well, thank you, Glennis. As always, great feedback. Did you guys have anything else to add before we move on?
No, sir, I did not.
No.
All righty. All right. Well, then that takes us into our news, ratings, and info.
What the hell is happening?
I have no idea.
I don't even know if that was the right one to use or not. I don't think we haven't done news in a while.
That is for fear. So
close enough for government work.
Yeah, we'll just take it for now. Fix it later.
Oh, so does that mean that these ratings haven't been done before?
We haven't been covering ratings for fear.
Then I can do it. Can I do it? It's been so long.
Yes, you can. The only thing I just checked for Sundays. That's not
you are Brian the Parrot King.
Yes.
There are no parrots.
There are no parrots. Parrots have been not so much.
There is no spoon.
Yeah. They haven't been posting them. I think the last one was ending June 2nd. And I checked that earlier today. Anyway, so, okay, Fear the Walking Dead, we'll go down the whole season, although unfortunately we don't have ratings for Sunday night yet because of Juneteenth. Juneteenth, anytime that there's a holiday, the ratings are delayed a day. So earlier today, they just released the Friday ratings, and that's typically released on Monday. So they will be out Wednesday sometime.
So the next time we come together to do this, we should have ratings for this week.
We should have ratings for this week and next week. So, all right. So we've got 5 weeks of ratings to go through. So on Fear the Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 1, which was aired on the 14th of May, it got a 0.09 in the 18 to 49 with 556,000 viewers. Let's see, how does that compare to, it's less. Yeah, it's quite a bit less actually than the previous season, but that's kind of where it's been going. Let's see here.
The numbers are just like where it ranked on that week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was number 43 on the in that day. So it got a 0.16 in the 25 to 54 and a 0.36 in the 50 and over. And that's something that we've been noticing both with this show and The Walking Dead, where the 25 to 54 and 50 and over people are still watching TV, and the Gen Xers are doing what Gen Xers people do. Season 8 episode.
That would be Gen Z, sir.
What did I say? Gen X? Gosh. We're Gen X. No.
We are Gen X.
Yes. I meant Gen Z. Gen X are watching TV. Gen Z are doing what Gen Zs do.
Well, and the thing that we've said, that most of the Walking Dead fans there's not like a crop of new people that came on board.
Right.
It's those of us stalwart holdouts.
Yeah, it's pretty much that, I would say. So Season 8, Episode 2, it got a 0.07 in the 18 to 49 with 465,000 viewers. That is at number 52 for the week. And because it dropped out of the top 50, there were no 25 to 54 or 50 and over ratings, but it actually went up in the top 50 for Season 8, Episode 3, which was on 5/28, so the Sunday before Memorial Day. It got, with lower ratings, strangely enough, it got a 0.06 in the 18 to 49 with 465,000 viewers, the same as the previous week. But it was at number 39. Because it was at number 39, we got the 25 to 54, which is a 0.11 and a 0.31 in the 50 and over. Episode 4 on June 4th got a 0.08 with the 18 to 49 demographic with 461,000 viewers, just down 4,000 viewers from the previous week, but it was at number 33, so it went up 6 notches with a 0.11 in the 25 to 54, same as the previous week, and a 0.29, 50 and over. And the last one we have data for was previous week's episode, June 11th, 0.07 in the 18 to 49, with an increase in number of viewers to 547,000 viewers, down 5 notches, though, at number 38. For some reason, more people were watching TV that week, I guess. Anyway, it got a 0.13 in the 25 to 54 and a 0.38 in the 50 and over. So next week we'll have the mid-season finale ratings and the ratings for episode 1 and then eventually episode 2 of Dead City.
Yes. It was interesting though when I was like the season episode 4 was the Morgan episode, and so it went up in the ranking. But yeah, I didn't have as many viewers. I'm not sure. Like, I was expecting that to be a little bit higher than it was, but I guess ranking wise it was. But it just figured like a lot of people would have checked out the Morgan episode because they'd be fans of Morgan, and just kind of cracked a little bit. All right, yeah, it's the ratings are weird because I still find them kind of like not everybody watches all at the same time, and it's like. And I don't know. It's a Matrix. You looked at the parrots too, because I like wrote in there, like I think June 2nd was the last one that I saw. But I went through basically I went back through from when Fear the Walking Dead started, and basically Walking Dead has not even broken into parrots since forever. So I just
it's interesting to see. Let me pull something up. There's a type of parrot that I was able to pull up yesterday for Strange New Worlds. Mm-hmm. And I haven't tried to see if I can get the same for, let me see here.
For like Walking Dead?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find anything for both shows here. I have to go to, let's see, I go to Insights, and then I scroll down and I go to United States. And then I pick a program. So I will pick Star Trek Picard. And I will pick, let's see, Fear the Walking Dead AMC. There it is. Okay. So I have stats. And I will post a link in our chat so you guys can look at it at the same time. All right. So Fear the Walking Dead, it is registering in the outstanding. There's 5 groupings within parrots. You have your below average. You have your average, which average fits in the one-time difference. That's if your demand is the average show. Good, and then that's outstanding, which goes from like 8 times the demand of an average show to 32. And then anything over 32 times the demand of an average show ends up in the exceptional, which is supposedly 0.2% of all shows. So where is The Walking Dead? Walking Dead is at 24.1 times the demand of an average show in the outstanding group. So
I mean, I guess it makes sense because I do see a lot of posts on Twitter and stuff like that.
It is actually, I mean, it's actually doing quite good. It has a demand over the last 30 days of 16.9% increase. It is in the 99.6th percentile. So that's pretty good. Now let's look at, The Walking Dead, Dead City. See if I can find that one. Yeah. Okay. And there's not a lot of demand for that one, actually. Right now, it is showing that one as 5.9 times the demand of an average show in the good section. I imagine that that's going to go up quite a bit, because it says that it ranks in the 99.7th percentile in the genre. So that's pretty high, but it only shows as 5.9 times the demand of an average show, and that puts it in the good section. So
I'm sure that will go up for sure.
And it had a demand. It had a demand decrease of 2.9%. So, like I say, I think that that's kind of low, and it will probably go quite a bit higher. So we'll have to keep that, and I'll just send the link to that to you guys as well, so you can look at it.
Cool. All righty. Well,
so yes, I've done my parrots for this week.
Awesome.
But like, unfortunately,
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's Larry Nemechek, who is, our kind of
your resident.
Yes, he's the one to talk to. Yeah, the one that shows the top 10 is the last one that was released was for the 12th of June, and it was showing the 3rd to the 9th of June. So that's, a week behind roughly.
Yep.
Right.
And who's on top? Of course, SpongeBob.
Of course. That.
Yes, the
thing
SpongeBob
never fails. All right. Well, there was some news that I'll just mention it briefly. Because I get those little alerts or whatever, like from Google, just being like, "Oh, here's some stuff that's been talked about Fear," and not much has been going on with the show. But there was something with the production company that got sued by the landowner that they were using to basically park all their trailers and all that stuff. So they're being sued for like $1 million in damages because they didn't leave it in good condition as when they first rented it out. So I thought that was interesting that they're
saying that the production company breached the contract after failing to leave the property in as good a condition as it was when it was received, beyond reasonable wear and tear. And they said the production company failed to use reasonable care and prevent damage to the property.
So I don't know what they didn't leave Texas in a good state, I guess.
It sounded like they tore the parking lot up and left a lot of trash around.
Oh, well, enough with that then. All right. Well, I guess LT, you want to tell people how to interact with us?
I will. We want to encourage you to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That's @WalkingDeadTTM. To submit your theories and feedback, most people post in the designated episode thread in our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/WalkingDeadTTM. You can send us email. That's walkingdead@talkthroughmedia.com. You can also use the feedback forum on our webpage. That's talkthroughmedia.com/feedback. If you'd like to leave us voicemail, you can call area code 216-232-6146. Remember that all of our new episodes are out on YouTube. Just search for Talk Through Media and remember to subscribe and click that bell to get notified when we have new videos. We also want you to like and review the Talk Through Media Facebook page at facebook.com/talkthroughmedia. Of course, the absolute best way you can support us is through our Patreon. That's www.patreon.com/walkingdeadtalkthrough. And we'd like to thank all of our Patreon supporters: Renee Murray, Deetta Patterson, Mike Rollo, me, and Kyle McAdams.
Yay!
Remember that Deetta, Renee, Mike, Kyle and LT will both be getting an early version of the episode this week.
I already got it.
So did I. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or the podcast client of your choice. While you're there, give us a rating or a review. You can also leave us a review at podchaser.com. You can rate individual episodes or the whole podcast. And remember to share our posts on Facebook and Twitter when we post them, or tell a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to get us new listeners.
Well, what else can be listened to on Talk to the Media, Brian? Do you have some news?
Well, it's funny that you say that because LT and I finally recorded an episode of Star Trek, specifically the Star Trek Strange New Worlds talk through yesterday. That episode is not out yet. I have started editing on it, but due to my divorce stuff today that I got done, I didn't spend a lot of time focusing on that, but I will be working on that after we're done this episode tonight. So hopefully it will be out in the next couple of days. Certainly to Patreon supporters, it'll be out pretty soon. But we're really happy to have that going again, and I'm happy to be back here as well. I've missed you guys. You have no idea how much this doing this podcast and the Star Trek podcast is kind of like I need it, and it's one of the great pleasurable things that I do, and I miss talking to you guys every week, and it's good to be back
here.
Yeah. So, and fear, and I'm going to say, if you're still listening to us, I'm sorry that I haven't been around. I'm thinking of you, and I'm blanking on her name. I'm sorry. Aaron. Why did I remember your name, Aaron? Sorry, Aaron. Anyway. I'm like scrolling. What's her name? Anyway, no, Aaron, I've missed you. Hopefully you're hearing this, and I know that you didn't get to listen or didn't get to watch, but anyway, give Dead City a chance. I think you might like it. I don't think you need to know The Walking Dead, so I think you'd like it. So anyway.
All right. Well, I guess,
and I'll also say that Deep Space Nine, Rebinged DS9 is continuing. It's getting near the end, so they're going to be doing Rebinged Voyager soon, and that will be interesting. And of course, they'll be back eventually to do Prodigy when Star Trek Prodigy comes back. And we're gonna keep going on Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and then segue right into Lower Decks when that comes out next. And I don't know what'll be next after that, but if it'll be Discovery or if we're gonna have another hiatus.
That's a good question.
I think we're gonna have another hiatus because
I think so.
They're still talking about Discovery in 2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and as far as I know, like it's going to be at least that long for Strange New Worlds, and the other shows that they've talked about, I don't think are at a point yet where they're like, we know that there's an Academy show, but I don't think we really know much going on. Right, we know that there is going to be a Section 31 movie, I think is what they're talking about, or limited series.
Yep.
So when that comes, we'll certainly be covering that. But yeah. So anyway, happy to be back.
Yep. Nope. Glad that you're with us today. All right. Well, let's go. So next week's episode of The Walking Dead Dead City, Season 1, Episode 2 is titled Who's There? Written by Eli and Jorn, directed by, still question mark because it was actually, it was blank whenever I looked at it. Description, YouTube TV was Maggie and Negan encounter native New Yorkers. Armstrong revisits a trauma, and Jenny attempts to adapt to change. All right, so until next time, I'm Kyle.
And I'm LT.
And I'm Brian.
And this is Fear the Walking Dead Talk Through. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.